Thanks for that Prime Gaming sub. We see you.
For eons, I have governed heaven and earth. Man or god, each is heard. Their anger, their pain, and in their time of need, I rise. Alona! So when the day comes that they ascend to the heavens, the rewards that await are not of silver or gold, but jade.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Championship Sunday at the Smite Spring Masters Tournament. 16 teams walked through these doors last week, and now only 3 of them remain for one final chance to become the Phase 1 Masters here. And it's going to be a fantastic week and a fantastic day of games. And all of that brought to us by our friends over at Prime Gaming, the title sponsor of Season 9 of the SPL. Make sure that you're getting the most out of your Prime membership by linking up your Twitch account to Prime Gaming so we can get all of the great content for games you're already playing and get a whole list of new games out there. If any of those caught your eye, make sure that you download some of those and have some fun. And you also get all kinds of other benefits like a free Twitch sub to any of your favorite streams out there. And with just the Prime membership alone, if you don't already have it, you get great benefits like free 2-day shipping on all the great items that you're already buying, so you don't have to wait any longer than necessary in order to pick those ones up. Thank you so much to Prime Gaming for being the title sponsor of Season 9 in the SPL. Championship Sunday, Trelly. It's going to be a fantastic day of play. We've got the Jade Dragons, the Camelot Kings, and the Tartarus Titans all remaining for their chance to be the Phase 1 true champions out of Masters. And we're going to be starting all of that off today with our semifinal matchup and an elimination one at that, because now from here on, if you lose the set, you are completely done.
Yeah, the Tartarus Titans are essentially sitting back. They get to watch because they won out, and it's between the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons. Winner is going to go up to that finals, and loser is going to go home. That's what we've been saying this whole time.
Yeah, Camelot Kings and Jade Dragons, our first match of the day, a best of 3 to see who's going to move on to face the Tartarus Titans, who is a team that has sent both of these teams into a pretty convincing win. Tartarus Titans 2-0'd the Dragons yesterday, and then 2-0'd the Kings. And now those two teams have to battle against each other to see who's going to get their fated rematch in our best of 5 grand finals later today.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine both of these teams probably pretty hungry. They're feeling a little salty about getting 2-0'd. It is a little bit of a new meta trying to figure out where everything stands, but the Tartarus Titans have looked like they just understand this a little bit better than everyone else right now. The Jade Dragons and the Kings, no slumps to the meta either, though. I think they both are going to have some interesting strats. The Dragons specifically, I love looking at the jungle matchups. Sam for Soccer is always going to be bringing those different style of picks that are going to be farming the map so efficiently. He's going to be helping out his team every way he can, and it's always going to be that's where I want to keep my eyes on in this matchup.
Yeah, and this is the first time that these two teams are facing off for this entire tournament, and what a set for them to face off in this semifinal matchup. Winner, again, moves on to face the Tartarus Titans, and I think you're right to bring up the Jade Dragons and talking about Sam for Soccer over in the jungle. He's been bringing up a whole slew of different kinds of picks. He's even kind of changed up his style to kind of fit this new format that the Dragons are doing, this triple hunter, single guardian, and then Sam just kind of doing whatever he wants to do, but he's more often been flexing towards these magical junglers, been running the Poseidons, the Hobwas, things like that.
Yeah, it seems like he just has to be the form of magical damage because everyone else on the Jade Dragons is wanting to play Hunters. Obviously, PBM, as the solo tank, is going to be setting up for the whole squad as a whole. FineOK has been adapting to this new meta very well, saying, hey, I can play these Hunters if you need me to. I can still play the top meta picks like the Kleena, for example. And then, of course, you can't talk about the Jade Dragons without bringing up Pagon. It just seems like right now, no matter what, he's going to be winning that 1v1 matchup in the mid lane. He's so dominant on any pick that he wants to go for. Half this team can play the characters like Ullr, so that picks and bans as well against the Jade Dragons. It's so hard to try and draft for because you don't know where these picks are even going.
The drafting phase might be one of the hardest things to go up against the Jade Dragons, and especially in a meta like this where not everybody has fully discovered exactly what they want to do, and everybody is going for some of these wilder picks, things like Chernobog solo. Okay, well, that's not something that we normally get to see. Well, now we're sometimes seeing him going over into the dual lane. And I think you're also right to really bring up Pagon, because coming into Season 9, Pagon was probably the hottest topic on this team. Is this kid coming from the SCC that I'm not going to say that nobody knew about, because if you've been in the ranked scene, if you've been in the SEC, everybody was singing this kid's praises. And then he comes into the SPL, and everybody had a big question mark on Pagon. This guy is an absolute beast in the mid lane. It's probably one of the best rookies that we have seen in quite some time. And for the explosive performance that he's had just in Phase 1 so far, Charlie, I can only imagine where this team can go if they can keep this level of consistency.
Yeah, and it's not even just in the mid lane. Like, obviously, Pagon's a mid laner, but the characters he picks are not mid lane centric picks, right? He'll whip out a Susanoo solo, make sure that you get no pressure in that lane. He'll also play these things like the Ullr where he can just kill you at level 2 if you step up the wrong time. So stepping up against Pagon in the lane is always going to be a difficult time. You don't really want to take up those fights because he's just so mechanically gifted, as you mentioned.
And then up against them is going to be the Camelot Kings. And if we want to talk about a mid lane matchup with players like BMT, a little bit more traditional as far as the mid lane goes, though BMT has been known to play some of the Hunters, does have some more kind of unique picks as well. Things like Hera, Discordia are gods that we don't really see anymore, but there are times whenever those gods are necessary, he'll bring those ones out to fight up against it. But BMT is also very comfortable playing these Hunters, these ability-based ones like the AMC. Wouldn't be entirely surprised if we saw things like Ullr come out for this player. The Camelot Kings are a team that came into Season 9. We had some questions about them. They were talking a lot about, well, we're hiding some strategies or making sure not to show too much. Well, now that backs are against the wall, like this is your last chance to make it to the finals, I can only imagine some of the theory crafting these guys have been doing.
Yeah, especially through the brain of genetics. Every time we do an interview with one of these players, someone is singing the praises of genetics. Like, yeah, we know Jen's we always just listen to his calls, that sort of thing. He tells, when we need to go on these objectives, what plays to make, that sort of thing. So I imagine that they probably had to go back to the drawing board again after getting 2-0 by the Titans. You can't just bring the same old tired strats. You have to adapt your meta and change things out. And we see Captain Twig. We saw Kirmi whip out this Vamana jungle. We didn't know how well it was going to do into this new style meta with Ullr on mid, but the Vamana has been a solid answer back. So maybe we'll see, things like that where we're seeing this insurgence of all of these ADCs. What's going to counter those things like Witchblade, things like Frostbound. Things like Vamana. All of those things are going to help out when you're in the drafting phase.
And I got to say, Charlie, this Masters event has really been a good showcase of just how many picks are out there that players are willing to go. Just in week number 1, we had nearly 90 unique god picks and bans that came throughout, and we've since been adding that here in week number 2. I mean, we got to be coming up near 100, and let's see if we get anything new in picks and bans for game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings. And this is what happens when we see so many days of play, so many sets going between individual teams, is we get adaptations of a meta like this, where Artemis, Olorun, and AMC are the first 3 gods banned away.
Yeah, and I have to imagine the Mercury will follow suit. Jade Dragons in that first pick slot. You do not want to give that up to Sanford Soccer. There are a few different things that could be prioritized in that first pick. Kleena, for example, is still very highly prioritized, even though it's not exactly what we've been seeing in the soul lane. It's just one of those picks that I think will always stand the test of time. As long as Kleena has her abilities the way they are, can build Soul Eater so effectively, it's still going to be one of those top priority picks. The Camelot Kings, though, get to go for their second ban here, and I imagine there's going to be some question marks. Do they feel comfortable giving up the Mercury, or do they want to say, hey, we can't let Sam have that much pressure on the map. We want to have Captain Twig get off to a good start as well. Both of these junglers can farm the map effectively, and that was what they were thinking about, and they are going to take that one away.
Yeah, not going to let Sam have not only a signature pick, but also one that is currently thriving in this meta. So Mercury gets taken away, as well as Jingwei, and this is just the meta that has developed around 9-5. Hunters have become the name of the game, and so many players, so many teams are having to ban these ones out and try and force them to go a little bit lower on the totem pole. That gives away the Poseidon as a final ban for the Kings and a Khepri first pick for the Jade Dragons.
I am surprised that was not a Chernobog. I know that genetics is nuts on the Khepri. This seems more like taking it away than locking it in for themselves. Obviously, Kepri is very strong right now, but with how much the Jade Dragons have put pressure onto their global presence around the map, with how much they put into that Chernobog pick in particular, you can flex it so well. Ullr is going to be taken away right away too, so the Camelot Kings already, in my mind, are in a pretty favorable position here. They take away Pagon's Ullr, or Panda Cat's Ullr, if you want to call it that. Both have been playing this very much. And now they get the option. Do they want to go for a second Hunter? Obviously, Olrond is not available, so they won't be able to get that magical ADC in the mid lane that we've seen so much. And Poseidon is banned away, and there it is. They're just going to take Ullr and Chernobog. That's, I mean, the Jade Dragons had to see that was coming, because that's exactly what I imagined was going to be happening.
100%, especially when Pagon's been popping off on that Ullr. This pick is not just a pick to put him on the Kings, it's also acts as a pseudo ban to take him away from the Jade Dragons. So now we're going to see a bit of a different look from the Jade Dragons. We might not be seeing this double or triple Hunter comp that they've been running in their last few matchups. Now we might see something maybe more akin to kind of the mix-up that we saw in their previous set up against the Titans, though that one didn't have that same level of success. I gotta imagine that the Dragons have something else up their sleeve now, seeing pretty much all the picks that they've been running the last few days have been taken away.
Yeah, they are hovering that Kleena there. More often than not will be going the way of FineOK in that solo lane. I think that's going to be a solid matchup no matter who you're up against. The question is, what does Pagon go to here? I don't think Susanoo has a great matchup into the Ullr specifically, and it's been such a while since we've seen him play things like the Thoth, even though he looked insane on that character. It's just not exactly what he's been playing as of recently. We'll have to see where they're looking to try and go up against that mid lane matchup. But they are really thinking about this one. Kleena still being hovered, not an insta-lock as I would assume, right? Kleena is just so strong right now. The pressure that it gives your solo laner and the amount of damage you can do just from behind the wall. It looks like they are just going to go ahead and grab the jungle more often than not. That will be going the way of Sam for Soccer, that Hevo, but there is some flex potential, maybe be holding on for a pick as Pagon as well.
Yeah, we'll have to see where the Dragons go with the remainder of their comps. Some flexibility across the board. FineOK did have a strong performance with the Kleena yesterday, something that I even called needing to be banned at one point in time, and then the Habwa's flexibility as you highlight. But Yemoja makes it all the way to a third pick for the Camelot Kings, and this is a god that's seen a lot of ban priority more than anything else, but the games that we have seen Yemoja picked up in haven't been the most successful, but maybe that's an attribute to the fact that Olrond has almost always been picked up as a counter to her. Now we kind of get to see what Yemoja looks like in the light when that god is completely taken away.
Yeah, we don't have to see any slow motion River's Rebuke, as you mentioned on the cast last time. I think it was like 10 second those river walls were up because it was in the slow motion. But now it's going to be that second wave of bans here. Notably, you have to think, again, that Pagon has a very massive god pool. And I still, looking at these picks, I don't think they have picked his character just yet. X-Ball is going to be banned away, and Fenrir is going to be the counter. I don't think anyone really loves the matchup where Fenrir can just chase the crushing wave, so banning that one away is going to be a pretty strong idea here. Notably, Bakasura is still open. Captain Twig has liked to just power farm in that lane, and he is still one of those picks that is going to control the jungle matchup, especially up against a Hebo early. There's just no way you can contest any of Baka's farm. Eat Minion is one of the best confirms for any jungle camp at that early stage. But they're still going to be thinking about this ban here.
They do have some time. Athena is also something that both Sam and Captain Twig have played in the jungle, so that could always be an option for both of those players as well, maybe to look at. You got some decent setup on the side of the Jade Dragons to be able to grab a god like that for Sam. If you want to take Athena, you can always have Habwa or Kleena as a follow-up. But it'll be a King Arthur ban, a shot at FineOK over in the solo lane. Maybe a little bit rarer of a ban that we see these days. King Arthur, not the most common pick, but definitely one of the safer picks when it comes to that solo. And then a Kali banned immediately after, so still taking shots at Captain Twig. But as you say, I mean, Bakasura is still open, and so is Baron. Actually, very surprised at how little Baron we saw yesterday.
Yeah, given that King Arthur ban, I think the Kings just aren't too confident that's going to be a Kleena solo. Maybe they think Pagon's taking that Kleena into the mid lane. It is certainly a possibility. We'll have to see if the Jade Dragons want to even go for that, or if they're just going to say this again. They still could be holding on to that ambiguity on purpose, saying, "Hey, we don't know exactly where this Kleena is going to go, but that's why we're baiting out these bans, and it's going to work out." Ho Yi is going to be the hover here. I think a hunter that is pretty underrated right now, given how prevalent crit is in the meta. We haven't seen too much of the Ho Yi, but you're always going to have a decent matchup into that lane, and the Thoth is actually being hovered here. I knew that he could pull it out, but I didn't think that this would be the time, and Pagon is going to lock in that Thoth and Ho Yi. So this is just I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is just a normal composition from the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, this is just something that they were running in 9.4 and throughout the regular season of play, so we're not going to see any of the wild stuff that we've been more accustomed to in this Masters tournament from the Dragons. Just going back to their level of play, going back to their comfort picks more than anything else. And that leaves the Camelot Kings now that Captain Twig has gotten to see the entirety of the Jade Dragons composition. He has his final pick for the Camelot Kings before this one closes out. Before he locks in, maybe if you get some time, any that immediately catch your eye, that would be a good pickup for him.
I think Nemesis would be pretty sick here. It would help with the Prot Shred for your double hunters. It's got a decent matchup into Hebo. If you can save that shield for the Crushing Wave. I actually meant Loki. Obviously,
right.
You have knock-up immunity in your third ability. You can simply ult Crushing Wave. I was talking about Loki there, if you couldn't tell.
Right, 100%. I mean, they're pretty close in the alphabet next to each other.
Exactly.
They're like right by each other on the God Select screen.
Yeah, and they look very similar as
Exactly.
well. Jokes aside, I did not expect a Loki here. It's one of those things that does not farm the map very well early on. You usually can't make use out of this Golden Blade start. I imagine that you still could go for it and just not use your abilities on the camps and just run to farm as quickly as possible, but you are going to be getting it's a difficult matchup into Hebo, I think. If you are going to use that Assassinate to get to the back line and then you just get knocked up and ulted, usually you're going to be dying there. But late game, one of the best Bumbus Hammers users in the game, just bar none. So if they do get late game, they have double Hunter and a Loki with the setup from Baron and Yamoja. The Camelot Kings, I think I see where this draft's headed.
Yeah, not just that. You know, you mentioned the Bumbus Hammer with Loki. Well, Bumbus Hammer's been something very prevalent on Baron Samedi as well over in that solo lane. Going up against the Kleena. Going to be kind of a stalemate of a matchup there. I imagine that lane for Fine OK, Kleena versus Baron. They're kind of just going to want to do their own thing, clear their own waves. But when it comes down to the amount of sustain that the Kings have drafted in their composition between the Baron, between the Yamoja, is there some easy application for the Jade Dragons to try and deal with that?
Oh yeah, I think just this Thoth pick alone, the Divine Ruin can be procced against pretty much anyone, right? It's like anytime you are up against a Thoth, you're going to be getting outranged. The Divine Ruin will always be procced there. And I do think that the Kleena has a decent matchup into the Baron because Baron Samedi cannot clear the way for quite some time, especially if you're going to be building this Warlock Sash. You need a lot more damage in your kit to be able to full clear the wave, which means Final K can essentially out-pressure and then just invade blue on cooldown. I think Sanford Soccer knows that as well. Looking at this matchup, they have to say, wait, that's a Loki and a Baron. We're going to be winning that 2v2 more often than not as long as we're even or ahead. So blue buff's probably going to be the name of the game. I imagine to see a lot of pressure from the Dragons onto that solo lane.
Yeah, so solo lane, the name of the game for the Jade Dragons to try and keep back. And that's something that we did get to see a little bit yesterday in those sets, especially that last set of the day. I mean, where they're definitely, you know, putting as many attempts to steal blue as they can. Win or lose the invade, you make sure that you try and get over there and try and keep that solo lane down. And we've seen countless times where you take a Baron up against assassin / mage combo or double assassin, and the Baron just has to kind of sit under tower for that time, waiting until that level 20. We do have a little bit of delay before we get into that game. We have a lobby remake as a band skin. Did get picked by our old Loki player over here himself, Captain Twig.
You had to call him out, man.
Hey, you gotta, man, come on, you gotta make sure to pick the right skins.
Yeah, I suppose. You could have just said someone picked a band skin, but now we have to just shame
There's
him.
a lot of good Loki skins, though, so there's a lot of them out there that are really good.
I mean, I can't help myself from just, yeah, man, there's so many.
The Frog Loki is probably the best one, though.
You like Croaky?
Yeah, Croaky Loki is pretty good.
All right, well, I respect that. I'm interested to see how Pagon plays this matchup in mid, because we've seen how he likes to play. And I know I've been harping on Pagon a lot, but usually he's been going for those early kills. And right now the meta does not stand for early aggression more often than not. It's just, hey, we're going to be farming effectively. We're going to stay back. We're going to get our camps. That's not really the playstyle we see from the Jade Dragons mid laner. And with a pick like Thoth into, I can only assume the Uller. I don't think Chernobog plays mid too often than not. So you're not going to have too much pressure in that lane. If Uller ever finds an active, BMT is going to be crisp with it. There's no way that you're going to find too much aggression in that lane. So I'm curious to see if he's able to dial it back, or if he's just going to say, hey, I'm still going to go, you know, as in as I can, try to hit all of these hieroglyphic assaults and invade and punish in, trying to find some pressure in that lane.
And I mean, with all the changes in 9.5, everybody being a little bit tankier walking into lane, getting those early 1 to 2 minute first bloods, not quite as common, though we still have seen a few. I remember Haddix was able to find a solo kill at the 1 minute mark. We saw over in duo lane, we've seen a couple of 2 minute kills. And even in mid lane, we still see some potential action. So when you're running things like Uller, Loki, one easy axe toss, as you say, could be a nice little pickup against this Thoth or against this Habwa. Habwa, notably one of the squishiest gods in the game and probably one of the lower health pools out there. But when it comes down to the 3v3 matchup with this, Thoth, Hobwalk, Khepri versus the Ullr, Yemoja, and Loki, is there any advantage that you throw between one of those two sets?
Well, when you look at the Camelot Kings, I feel like just the 2v2, Loki and Ullr are going to have a field day, right? You're up against two mages in the mid lane. They just simply have more damage early on. If Sanford Soccer does go for Blink, which could certainly be a problem, one axe, and I think that Hebo could find just death as long as Loki has all of his abilities up and is ready to counter up with that. So when you add a Khepri in the mix, Loki mostly just has single target damage. So if you blow all of your damage into a Scarab's Blessing, then the Jade Dragons can easily turn that one around. Even with the Rivers, it's just not going to be that big of a deal. I don't think Pagon ever has to step into a position where he can get stuck in the Rivers. He can stay so far away from genetics on this Yemoja that it shouldn't be a problem. My eyes go to Captain Twig no matter what here. Can you get enough safe damage off without committing your body, without using that Assassinate? Because that's essentially your only way out. If you're going in with your Invis, you have to be either disengaging or getting a kill.
Well, and we've seen these Yemojas come out, and we've actually been seeing a lot of hunters go towards these shells. Even some mid laners pick up shells of their own to try and deal with the walls by picking up Phantom. But when I'm looking at what the Kings have drafted, Ullr, Loki, Chernobog, if I'm one of the carries, I probably don't want to pick up shells. Yeah. So does that then force Mike to have to pick that up as a first, if not second, and maybe immediate full buy relic?
Well, I think you could get away with shell as long as you're staying with your team. Loki, he's one of those characters that if he catches you out in the jungle by yourself, he will simply 1v1 you. If you're with your squad, Loki does not have a good time getting to the backline. He has a lot of single target damage, as we mentioned. Any bit of CC is going to interrupt a lot of his damage. You don't want to be abducted in the middle of your third ability while you're channeling that. You're going to lose out on a lot of DPS. So I just think as long as you're staying grouped, you could probably make use of double shell here. There's not an insane amount of burst damage for the Kings, but if you're looking at the Jade Dragons, there is an insane amount of burst damage with, obviously Final Judgment and Crushing Wave. That goes without saying, but like a triple bounce from Ricochet. I think Aegis is going to be on the minds of a few members of the Kings, but I think as long as the Jade Dragons are staying grouped up, using those Khepri shields well, they could probably make use of some shells as long as they're staying together as a unit.
So for the Camelot Kings, kind of their game plan, their MO for pretty much the entirety of this tournament has been to draw these games out for 25 to 30 minutes before they really start getting going, before they really, hit the ground running. Jade Dragons have kind of been the opposite. They wanted to get it going from minute 1 until they're ending the game, usually at 25 minutes. For these two compositions to go through, do the Dragons have a comp that can get themselves through that early game and then stand up against the Kings to maybe push this to an early, or do the Kings maybe have a good enough stall comp to way that they can get to the point of the game which favors them?
I think that Sanford Soccer on this Hebo is going to be able to find aggression in that solo lane. That's what I'm predicting. That's where I think he's going to be looking to find this aggression because, again, you're up against the Baron who's not going to be able to clear the wave very well. And if they can play through fine okay, they should be able to force the issue. They should be able to say, we're not letting this double Hunter comp get online. But the Camelot Kings, one of the best macro farmers in the league, bar none. They know how to get their farm and get out. They're not going to give up too many early kills. They're just going to say, hey, we're going to get all the neutral camps. We're going to invade when we can, but we're never going to overextend. So it's a bit of a 50-50 here. It really just depends on how active this Hebo can get. Can you find an early kill and can you get this clean ahead?
And it's always funny talking with the Kings players. When we bring them in for interviews, we ask them, man, you guys are kind of struggling a little bit in the early game, but you guys always seem to be fine with, getting that farm up. And it's always funny listening because they always go, yeah, we don't want to go down 3K, but we kind of just do. Maybe we're not so great at it, but at least we know that we got the late game going through. Jade Dragons, on the other hand, they love playing this early game. They love getting those first few kills, maybe go for some of these buff invades if possible to try and get some of that pressure out there. So I'm curious to see how the mending of the minds will kind of clash between these two teams now that they've finally had their first opportunity to play against each other in this Masters tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one just looking at the matchups once again. It just really depends, man. It's the Jade Dragons, I know, like to go in, right? And Loki is a pick that can punish that. If Pagon is ever dashing aggressively on the lane and has no eyes on Captain Twig, there's just no outplay that Thoth has in his kit to say, I'm going to 1v1 a Loki. It just does not exist. You can't stun out anything. You just have a root in that regard. So he's going to have to dial it back a little bit unless his team plays around him. But one of the best mid laners in the league, I imagine he's got a good amount of restraint when coming to, can I dive or not?
Our first set of the day, a best of 3 between the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings. Winner of this set moves on to face off against the Tartarus Titans. The loser goes home. Who's going to take game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings? That's the question that we all want to see answered. It's really just this complete difference of that mindset. The early game dominance of the Jade Dragons, the late game powerhouses in the Camelot Kings. It's something that I think everybody is waiting for. Polls have been going around, which team do you think is going to win? A lot of fan favoritism over towards the Jade Dragons. Talking with some of the pros going into these weeks, a lot of them had the Camelot Kings, Trelly.
Yeah, I mean, given the way that the Kings play the map, I understand that, and a lot of these Jade Dragons are also content creators in their own right, so they have a big fan base backing them up here. But everyone is just going to be having their eyes on this matchup, who is going to be able to come out swinging, and I think Game 1 is going to be very important here. I'm more of a proponent of Game 2 is the most important, but Mifflin always highlights in a best-of-3 set, this one is where you want to come out swinging. If you show that dominance early, you're going to be able to take the momentum on your side.
And who's going to show that dominance early in Game 1? Will it be the Dragons? Will it be the Kings? We'll take it over to Blazy and Road to bring us Game 1.
And what better question to start the day? These two teams have come up through so much over the past week, and finally they are here just one set away from the grand finals. And already, Ro, I'm seeing some super interesting stuff going on. I know the desk broke everything down so much, but I really want to talk about this Loki and specifically the different build that he's already going from a lot of the other assassins we've had this week.
Yeah, Loki is a Boomba's Hammer user, much like Baron Samedi wants to get to the level 20 mark so you can get those auto attacks between your abilities and reduce your cooldowns. Looks like we're seeing an early invade from Genetics and Netroid here. Maybe a quick steal of the purple buff. Maybe they just steal the smalls and leave the big one. We've seen that before as well. But that means no green buff will be done in the early game by this dual lane. They should be able to secure the whole thing and walk right out of here and probably go to their own purple buff.
That's exactly what they're going to do. Jade Dragons none the wiser, and the Camelot Kings already establishing a little bit of a cheeky steal here early on. That's got to be a nice play for them, especially with the amount of pressure that PBM and PandaCat are going to be able to bring on these two characters.
Yeah, I think Mike will follow as well. Maybe he'll get a lucky steal, and that is completely nullified by Genetics picking up the hog early. So a decent XP and gold lead in the dual lane here. I don't think we'll see Polar Bear Mike and PandaCat get level 2 here. So I imagine Netroid and Genetics, who will get level 2 eventually, will be able to get pressure on this next wave, unless they're just not able to even clear the wave like we're seeing here. So, a good strategy to get an early lead, but maybe that'll be nullified by the Harpies if Jade Dragons keep up that pressure and secure them.
Well, it's one of the biggest strengths of Capri, right, in this early lane. You're shredding the protections of the enemy minions, you're giving extra protections to your own minions, you are simultaneously making it easier to clear your own wave and making it harder for the Kings to clear theirs. So as you can see here, doing a really good job.
Yeah, and they'll get the Harpies, though it's a little scary to walk into the jungle right now because Big Man Tings and Captain Twig do have that mid pressure, so they're able to rotate and get those oracles, and that does scare away Polar Bear Mike and PandaCat from invading too much because they know that there's a Loki potentially nearby. So they'll just clear another wave where this one's a little even, so maybe they'll just go for the neutral camp on the left here and call it at that. Captain Twig, lucky for him, he gets to go and secure a green buff as well because that was left up at the start of the game.
And that's, just extra free experience for Captain Twig
right.
if he so chooses to go and clear it, which I believe he already did there, as you mentioned. And now we're just back to this early game neutral farming, and we already see a little bit of a lead here in the mid lane. Not a giant one, but half-level lead from BMT. Kicks things off right.
The desk broke that one down as well. It's just the luxury of having a Hunter mid and an Assassin jungle compared to a double mage on the other side. They will have that fight pressure. You don't want to step to a Hunter and an Assassin in the early game if you are two mages. So Sanford Soccer will take the defensive route, just go do his back camps and assist in his solo laner in clearing the blue buff.
Meanwhile, BMT clears up that left Harpy camp, and he's going to push his objective lead a little bit further on. Red buff falls his way as well. In a solo, like this is not typically a common experience for a mid laner to get to solo clear their red buff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a luxury, that's for sure, because, he's a Hunter, he can clear it relatively effectively, whereas the Thoth, for example, will take quite a lot of damage from that red buff this patch. It is being changed in the next patch, so it'll be a bit easier for mages, but right now we are still on patch 9.5, not the bonus patch, so Pagon will take a little bit more damage here than he is normally used to.
It's going to set him up for a little bit of a harder time in lane. We've already talked about the difference in terms of, actually, blinking through here. PBM looking to get aggressive on the purple buff. really looking for the steal, but good patience from Genetics in that trio just to make sure there's no chance.
Smart. Netroid just stands there, doesn't DPS it any further. So if Polar Bear Mike wants to stay there longer, he's going to miss that entire wave while Panda Cat clears it. Pretty easy to out-secure a Khepri. Probably one of his best steal potential is abducting in through that buff and hitting Genetics at the same time. But then he has no escape later as well. So he doesn't want to go he doesn't want to go that deep and just instead stares at them, tries his hand at stealing it with his 3, doesn't get it, but it doesn't matter. It goes back to a very neutral farm game. But in the solo lane, however, this is not so neutral. And Assassin certainly, like we talked about in mid lane, beating the mages in the early game.
And this is going to happen for a fair amount of time until Variety can get that Warlock staff online that he's already building onto. It's a little bit more healing and health in the mix. Meanwhile, Fino's building straight towards that Soul Eater here in that first item. Is going to give him so much sustain.
Yeah, we're seeing kind of a different playstyle compared to yesterday from the Jade Dragons. So Camelot Kings last night did their homework and decided on some pretty good bans, I would say. They're able to ban away that premier 4-hunter essential team comp that Jade Dragons were running. So they're back to a normal team comp, I would say.
Yeah.
Just maybe the only difference being like a Hubwire jungle instead of a normal assassin. So, I mean, still a lot of damage. They are still playing one support, really, because, one frontline in Polar Bear Mike, because I don't think Fino K will be building any defense in this game, and he hasn't been doing it in the tournament so far. So I imagine Genetics, for example, will still have to be very careful when stepping up to this team.
And they don't have the same level of zone control that we've seen the Jade Dragons be drafting for so far in this tournament, right? They don't have the All-Around for the Sanctified Field. They don't have the Yamoja or anything comparable to that for that large area denial. So I think this is really good, as you mentioned, for the Camelot Kings to push Jade Dragons, not necessarily to an uncomfortable degree, but just something they're a little less used to at this point.
Yeah, a great move by them. Take away their biggest strengths and see what else they got left in the tank. Whereas Camelot Kings, they love this teamfight composition, and that's what they've done. Panda Cat trying to ult their wave there, but Genetics a great job at rip-tiding all those minions away. Netroid dashes away as well, so no threat at all.
But looking at the separation in gold here already, Ro, we're seeing a little bit of a lead going towards the Jade Dragons. They're farming these neutral objectives a little bit more consistently, able to steal away a few more totems of coup. I say a few. They've got, in fact, an infinite times amount.
Yes,
more.
And that's where most of the lead is coming from. Maybe not literally most, but that's where a lot of it is. Because an assassin versus an early mage, like we said, is not going to be easy for Variety. I don't think he's going to go for this Stealth Ultimate. That wouldn't have killed. So better job to just save it there. Figmentings has to back anyway. With no mana, he may as well not be there. So they'll push him under, and then they're able to go and farm. Well, they wanted to invade backhands, but they are not up.
Well, let me ask you about this. PBM goes for the blink. And we should have highlighted this earlier. Not typically something we see from Khepri, at least in that pre-level 12 slot, right?
We have seen PBM pick this Khepri before, and he did buy blink then as well. I'm not sure if he started it though, so it shows that he really wants to get aggressive and move around this map in the early game, and that kind of buys his team a ticket to the mid game where they seem to be strongest in this tournament so far.
And that, he's able to set up for those aggressive plays there. Like, unfortunately wasn't successful for him that time around, but if that connects and Pagon can get a full rotation of abilities onto BMT, maybe we're looking at first blood there for the Jade Dragons.
That's right. And it's utility as well. It can be used both ways. He can blink to one of his teammates to get in range of that Khepri ult as well. So it can be used both ways, but no other engagement tools on the side of Jade Dragon. So it's really important for him to get that blink so he can find an engagement on what would normally be a very support-esque character.
Well, Sam has already finished up his Doom, or Variety in a lot of trouble. Crushing Wave off the mark, pulling back Sam. Trying to find some more damage, but Variety is really far up a creek. No paddle available to him. Captain Twig has made his way over, though, hits the invisibility, but look at the damage coming back in return. Forced to ult away.
Yeah, if we're talking about that blink, Captain Twig is lucky Polar Bear Mike did not have that blink available there. He would have been able to get that blink abduct, but he wasn't able to find it. Sam with a great knock-up for that Loki out of stealth, and Trelly broke it down on the desk. This god that Variety is playing, Baron, is very susceptible to ganks. So Sam for Soccer, this is the second time he's been to solo lane. This time he's able to find the gank and find the kill. So that's a great start for him. He will get a little lead on the Loki, which is really important because this Loki and Hebrew matchup, it's very bursty. So if one guy has the lead over the other, then that really makes a big difference because really they're just going to two-shot each other eventually.
And the Doom Orb on Sam for Soccer's part at the moment is going to be able to give him so much speed to rotate to these other parts of the maps. Captain Twig, though, Loki's not a slow character, so I don't think he's going to be behind. This more puts Sam for Soccer toe-and-toe with the rotationary power of the Loki.
Yeah, but we saw that small engagement on the right side, and that is how the matchup goes sometimes. If Loki gets knocked up, that's about it for him. He doesn't have a big health pool, so if he gets knocked up, he's almost guaranteed to take another spell, and at that point, he's too low to take the fight. So unless Captain Twig can really flank around, stealth in, without getting hit by that knock-up, and get the engagement on Sanford Soccer before he's ready, it's a tough matchup for him to win.
Back to neutral farming. Not too much aggression happening at the moment. Actually, I say that. Captain Twig looking to wrap around on Fino. He's going to be able to find a wall. No such luck for Captain Twig and Variety this time around. Variety did have the ultimate, so he could have potentially looked to pull Fino K in there, but beads are available.
Yeah, either one of them could have used an ultimate to force the beads there. It's interesting that they elect not to, but maybe this is what we've seen from the Kings before, where they don't need to push their luck in the early game. They just want to scale anyway, so they just play cool, calm, and collected, and hopefully they can get to the point where they feel they are strongest.
Hopefully that'll be sometime soon for them. The Jade Dragons really starting to amass this lead, and Twig once again getting caught out. The tick from the Suns is going to put him in vision range, but there's Pagon with the snipe under the tower. Assassinate does not save the life of the jungler this time.
Just the tip from Pagon as well. What a perfectly aimed snipe. And it took a while for Twig to find the spot where he could ult over that wall. So he took another round of abilities from the Hebo, and that got him very low into the ult range of Pagon and eventually killed. What a great play from Pagon there. A heads up play, just knowing he's going to ult over as well. Channel that ultimate ready, and then as soon as Loki comes over, fire it off.
And this is one of the main disadvantages. Actually, hold on, Variety dies just instantly. Sam for Soccer showing us the power of the Habois. Only 28 stacks on that Warlock staff, so not a lot of HP for Variety, and Sam really abusing it.
And that is the vulnerability of the Baron solo. He is weak in the early game. Let's see if Genetics is weak in the early game, if he can survive this gank.
River's Rebuke is available to him, so he should be pretty safe for now. Captain Twig looking to potentially get aggressive. Does walk into the Riptide.
That was
we'll delay him. It was totally an accident, so we'll delay him a little bit, but looks like the Harpies were the objective then. So far, so good for the Jade Dragons row. Sitting a pretty comfortable 3,000-ish gold in the lead.
Doing exactly what they need to do, really.
Absolutely.
Trelly broke it down. This is their weakness. The Camelot King's weakness is on the solo side of the map, and Sanford Soccer needs to be making those rotations over there and use their strengths to their biggest advantage, right? Sanford Soccer, that is the third time in 10 minutes that he's been there. 2 out of those 3 times finding a kill on Variety as well. So Variety maybe just needs a couple more wards, is able to hang back a little bit, but Final K also isn't pushing him under the tower every time either. So Final K keeps Variety coming out of his tower, and that keeps him vulnerable.
And this is, despite that though, Variety has been able to somewhat keep himself close to Fine OK. About a level down, I would say, at this point in the game. But so far, so good for him. It's obviously not an ideal, but he has done a pretty good job of still finding this farm, making sure he's not letting Fine OK get too far ahead. Naturally, forces the bead here, but it's going to be too early from Fino, and he's still going to get pulled back into the coffin. Captain Twig's here, but this guy has a lot of HP to dig through. Assassinate finishes that one up.
It was rough. That's why Netroid ulted over there. He actually slowed down Mike, so Mike wasn't able to blink to get in range. He wasn't able to run to get in range. So Finoke actually falls down there, even though Polar Bear Mike was on his way with that ultimate. A good path for Finoke to take, but just too effective of that ultimate from Netroid. So really well played by him.
Pagon gets pulled back. Look at the quality of the Riptide. Genetics nearly sets up the mid laner for a kill there, but luckily for Pagon, has the dash available and will find himself being able to go back through that short end. But Sam for Soccer potentially getting caught out. Never mind, Captain Twig is more interested in the Scorpion for now.
That is classic Kings, is that they'll just take a great blink. That Riptide doesn't put Polar Bear Mike in combat because it isn't any damage. He's able to blink out of those walls. Perfect play by him. Genetics just needs to weave an auto attack in there while Polar Bear Mike is still in the air, and he won't be able to blink out. But great reaction time from Polar Bear Mike.
Absolutely, but that does mean he doesn't have it available to him though. Variety still in a lot of trouble. Has to go up into the coffin. Stun Sam for Soccer, but PBM right here. The heal from Variety will save his life for now. And that is the one thing we haven't seen happen so far. Sam has been able to weave these ganks in to when Variety doesn't have that heal available to him. Netrioid doesn't have any healing either, and Panda Cat doesn't miss a single auto attack. The root off the mark, and Panda walks through, and the bounce isn't gonna connect, but that auto will. The 1v1 from Panda Cat.
What a solo kill from him, and not his first of the tournament either. Netroid being abused for using that global ultimate, using his CC immunity. Unfortunately, Netroid missing the root, but Pendacat was ready to beat it out anyway. What a great catch by Pendacat.
Absolutely. Does force the beat, so not a complete loss. Just unfortunate if that root comes out and Pendacat has to take multiple tower shots, the turnaround definitely possible there for the ADC.
Captain Twig gets away with his life there and a purple buff for himself. So Pendacat's lead nullified, not nullified, but slowed down a little bit. So just stopping the bleeding, making sure Netroid doesn't fall too far behind. But Variety, on the other hand, is in trouble.
Still trying to find Pendacat though. Captain Twig gets eviscerated, caught between a Hou-Yi and a wall. But Pendacat is still going to get caught out by Netroid. Surely no way out for the ADC, but Polar Bear Mike around the side. Pendacat is having to fight Genetics. And the stun should be able to help Hou-Yi get out in that situation. PBM has to watch while the red buff gets taken away, but still, what a win for Polar Bear Mike.
Polar Bear Mike just makes it with this rotation. Just like he tried with the right lane, he's able to make it to this one just in time. And a great Riptide from Genetics to keep them in there after that ultimate, but Netroid wasn't ready to follow up. We did see a tier 1 tower go down, and that's because of the pressure of Ula on Big Man Tings. He's able to just pressure out this Thoth, and he has to sit under his tower, really. He can clear the wave from afar, but he cannot step out of the tower. Until now, where they aren't in lane, they're just doing the Gold Fury instead.
This is a really big pickup here for the Camelot Kings. Super early for a Gold Fury from what we've seen in this tournament so far. Only 14 minutes into the board. And as you said, yeah, this basically pulls the game back down to even. Still about 1,000 gold in it, but 14 minutes in, that's all not so big.
Yeah, and to King's style, that's what they want, really. They're fine with getting into the late mid-game with a small lead. Not too much action happening here. Loki will get away with his life, but lose the back camps for it. But like I was saying, King's still scaling to the point where they are happy to team fight. Big Man Tings taking the early rotations to that Gold Fury and an early rotation to the dual lane.
And the Cat's going to get stunned out there, has to jump away. And Captain Twig looking to go straight back down onto him. Assassinate comes through, and Pendacat is going to be the first target in this engagement. Polar Bear Mike, once again, trapped in the water, but is able to blink away. That blink being used so cleanly from PBM every single time.
Genetics not quite learning his lesson yet. He needs to get those auto attacks on Polar Bear Mike if he wants to keep him trapped in there. Netroid, I think, has been tipped off from this gank.
Maybe it's just like a muscle memory thing. Genetics is so used to Kepri's not having the blink.
Yeah, and you're lining up your ones, your bubbles, and your Riptides and all that just to get this extra utility and make sure he can't walk out of that ult. You're not thinking about him not blinking out of that ultimate,
Yeah.
But great reaction from Polar Bear Mike. Maybe even juking auto attacks as well to stay out of combat in order to get that blink. So, like we said before, it's a great offensive tool, but it's being utilized as a defensive tool as well. He's getting faster rotations for these Kepri ults. He's getting out of these Yemoja ults, and these Yemoja ults are very long cooldown as well. So, great use of blink so far. Not something we see often on Kepri, but maybe we'll see it more often from now.
And I think it's smart too. Like, I've been sitting here thinking, why not just go for the early Phantom Shell? But it does cost a lot more gold than just getting the blink. And PBM still has the option to go for that shell later on in the game to help his team get out of the Riptide. But, sorry, not the Riptide, the River's Rebuke.
Yeah.
But having that blink available to him not only gives him that escape potential, but as you've mentioned, also helps him get to his teammates faster if he's, not necessarily nearby.
But this constant aggression from the Kings, even though they're not able to find the kills, it is rewarding them with that global gold. They're able to get the tier 1 mid tower, a Gold Fury. They're being pretty effective at getting these Scorpions as well. So they're actually pulling in the lead despite being down to 3 kills at this point.
And that is reflecting in the gold. The Camelot Kings have been able to take a small lead of about 200 gold, but that's something.
It's a small lead, but it was a big swing, right?
Yeah.
They came down from a 2,000 deficit. So if you're doing that and you're a scaling teamfight comp like a Yemoja comp normally is, especially with 2 Boomers Hammers coming up in another 5 levels each, that's where you want to be. You just want to be an even game up until all of a sudden your gods and your builds become more efficient.
And here's a question in terms of builds that I do want to ask you here, Ro. Sam for Soccer on this hub, typically we want to see this like giant burst, assassinate kind of style, and it's like if I die in the fight, as long as I take somebody else with me, it's fine. But this time, Sam opting to go for that Warlock Sash to try and keep himself alive a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's an interesting item. It's not crazy tanky, and it still does have a bit of percentage penetration on it, but it's interesting to see him pick it up over something like a more traditional higher damage item. It's also quite expensive as well, just as the Doom Orb was also. So it looks like he's got a bit of a percentage penetration, but then he'll go for the, which I imagine was a Soul Reaver. Yes, it was a Soul Reaver, and that will give him, be able to utilize that percentage penetration on tanks even better.
We also see the Spirit Desolation picked up by Pagon here. Will give him a little bit more cooldown, a little bit more access to those abilities, and that's like that for both. It's a very scary thought here for the Camelot Kings. Being able to spam through those ultimates a lot more often is going to be very impactful. Fine, okay, caught out by Variety here. Just doing a great job of zoning away the Jade Dragons from this Pyromancer.
Now King's kind of in control at this point. They're the ones pulling the objectives. They're the one pressing the issue. So they are feeling stronger. They're just making room for themselves and able to secure these objectives. Now we see Variety only with a 1 level deficit at this point. He's got his tanky items online, bit of cooldown as well, and a lot of health for him. So he'll be able to, a lot of power as well actually. He'll be able to clear the wave no problem up against this Soul Leader on FineOK, and he's able to just hold his own up until he can get a Boomba's Hammer online.
And I really like the Ethereal Staff in this build.
It's
I think
great.
it gels so well with what Variety wants to do while not sacrificing the potential of doing that damage. Obviously, percent health damage, so impactful in this meta right now. 9-5 sees a huge buff to that health pool.
That's right, and he's stealing that health for himself as well, so this makes himself even more tanky, and it's exactly what they want. If they just want to hang back and be ready to kill frontliners, Mike has to be very worried about losing a lot of his health to this Ethereal Staff, because if he gets 3 stacks of Ethereal Staff on him and then Riptide it into Double Hunter, he'll die very quickly.
Captain Twig potentially getting caught out in the jungle here. Able to go into the stealth, but still catches him out. Does Mike, but Panda Cat now trapped by the decoy. Has to jump away, but Polar Bear Mike all the way by himself. Scarab's Blessing is extended, and there's the River's Rebuke to catch two. Sanford Soccer's locked in as well. But there's going to be the Phantom Shell saving his life for now. And everyone's out. FineOK through a wall. Everyone else just walking away.
What an engagement from the Camelot Kings, but completely nullified by Polar Bear Mike. He first is able to, get that ultimate off before he dies, even though he gets bounced around by that Riptide. And then when that River's Rebuke comes down from Genetics, he's able to shell him and his team, and they walk right out of there. FineOK also make him some space and is able to zone them off. But now, that's what King's reward is. They get to pull the Gold Fury.
Yeah, absolutely. So many tools were expended by the Jade Dragons that there will be this window here for the Camelot Kings. Dragons, though, they don't want to let this go for free. Sanford Soccer still has that crushing wave, and that amount of damage is still enough to make the Camelot Kings back off for now.
So King's not too confident in pulling the objective. They are close to their level 20 mark when their confidence will go through the roof, so they're still waiting for that.
Trying to pull someone back. Variety able to find Panda Cat, but the beads are going to be there for him. Captain Twig on the left-hand side getting eviscerated by Sanford Soccer, but should be able to get out just fine. The Blink will find the Loki safe, and surely with that stealth, there's no shot that anyone will be able to track him down. Meanwhile, the rest of the fight ends up in a wash. No one from the Jade Dragons wants to commit too heavily, but that will open up the Primal Fury. Netrioid and Genetics are looking to rotate in.
This one should be free, but there is a chance at a small steal here.
There's going to be the Jade Dragon securing it up. That final judgment, just truly an insane piece of secure. Polar Bear Mike might pay for it with his life, but I'm sure he doesn't mind sacrificing himself for the Gold Fury.
Yeah, and we're talking about sacrificing, that's right. FineOK was backing, wasn't even trying to help. Pagon walking away towards mid. I imagine Polar Bear Mike just saying in comms, leave me, it's fine, we got the objective. So a good call by Jade Dragons there, rather than trying to fight while the rest of Kings are on their way. Take the objective, take the small win, and get out. But still, this game is in favor of the Camelot Kings, and we're still yet to see them get those Boomba's Hammer online.
It is still a good curbing, though. The Jade Dragons able to re-establish that even baseline for this game so far. The Kings, it's 21 minutes in, Ro, and what do the Kings like to do in this early situation? It is the Fire Giant, already half HP, but Fino is in the wall, looking to just do some disruption, and it will be enough so far to keep the Camelot Kings out. But Fino's still in this wall. Potentially gets caught out here. The beat's expended, and now the pullback should be able to find the life of the Cleo. The Aegis is used, but it's not going to be enough. FineOK falls down.
I was waiting for the Capriol, but Polar Bear Mike not actually in range there, coming out of base. So a good opportunity for Kings to pull that Fire Giant, force FineOK in to get them off that Fire Giant, and then capitalize and pull him back in. They got his beads, they got a great Riptide on him, and then followed up by the Baron ultimate. There's no way for him to escape there unless the Capriol was around. So both relics and a kill out of FineOK.
Hasn't been a great game for Fino on this Cleo. I think we've seen both of his kills have actually, both of his deaths have actually been from either not having the beads or beadsing the Barons. Having all too early, but Sanford Soccer taking a whole bunch of damage. Netrioid is here too, and he's very fast, Ro, but I don't think he can catch Sam. The Doom Orb and the speed buff is just going to make him so fast, but it's not going to matter. BMT here with the axe. Scarab's Blessing will save the life of the jungler. PBM forced to use it though. That's going to be a big opening for the Camelot Kings.
Not only that, but he uses the blink to get in range of that Scarab's Blessing, so that's their main engagement tool gone. Unless they can find an abduct from around the corner or something like those, or somehow else unexpected, they don't have that blink to make it a surprise anymore. And that is Camelot King's ticket to level 20. Just one more level each on Variety and Captain Twig, and they will be in range of that Boomba's Hammer. And I think their team comp gets a lot better at that point.
Yeah, they will truly be able to spam an unbelievable amount of abilities from these two characters. Variety's healing is going to go through the roof. Twig's damage is going to go through the roof.
He's trying to farm that level 20. He might get caught out here.
Potentially, but it is just Twig for now. The rest of the Camelot Kings are on their way over. Genetics and Captain Twig are here to make sure that Variety is going to be just fine, and he will be. Jade Dragons have to back away. And I'm looking at this big level difference between PBM and Genetics. Genetics only one level away from finishing that Benevolence.
This is awkward for Kings. They don't really want to fight right now, but they're being forced into it. Variety's still not level 20. He's just had to use his beads. He's just had to use his ultimate. He really wants one more solo wave so he can go back and buy that Boomba's Hammer. But Jade Dragons aren't giving him that chance right now. They're keeping up the pressure so he cannot back.
It is just a Pyromancer though, so not the worst thing in the world if the Camelot Kings do have to give it up. They don't want to let it go for free though. And Genetics stepping up is a good example of that. PBM is going to get pulled back. There's the stun. Damage comes through. Jade Dragons do secure the objective, but Polar Bear Mike falls down, and so does Fino. Okay, the Assassinate in the side is going to clear the Cleo, and now diving forward. Netrio trying to find the damage. Off the mark is Pagon, and look at that! Wall of water catches the entire Jade Dragons in the wall.
A deicide right before they get to the strongest point of their team comp. Kings could not be happier right now. A Fire Giant, the only thing they could really want is an EFG, but a Fire Giant at 24 minutes when a bunch of towers are yet to be taken as well. They're going to get a huge gold lead out of this. They're going to hit their item spikes at the same time, and it's going to be so much harder for Jade Dragons to deal with this team fight comp that the Kings are bringing.
Captain Twig charging down the middle lane. Polar Bear Mike, you know what, Ro? There is 20 seconds left on the nearest lifeline.
I don't think they can end, but they'll look at mid.
I don't think that they're going to. I think there is potentially an opening, but the Camelot Kings, I don't think, are the kind of team to want to push that, you know, flip coin.
Yeah, I mean, but a great call by them, seeing that opportunity to have another 10 seconds to spare. They can just go and grab that mid Phoenix right after that Fire Giant. They haven't even spent their gold yet, so now they're still yet to go get some towers. But a great Rivers Rebuke and a great catch on Polar Bear Mike here.
Yeah, and this is something we've just seen Genetics do so much. He's so good at finding these Rivers Rebukes, finding these Riptides, and just look at this positioning of the Rivers Rebuke.
There's a Riptide at the back as well.
Yeah, it just stops everyone from getting out, and they're all pinned against that back wall anyway. Sets Netrioid up for a triple kill. The Fire Giant goes down. What just a beautiful... Like, you shouldn't be allowing Genetics to play Yamoja. We've seen this the whole tournament, and for some reason he's still allowed to get it.
Jade Dragons have been giving it to every team. They're confident in their strategies against it, but their strategies have been kind of taken away by King's bans. They are forced into a much more conventional team comp this time, and they seem much weaker in this type of matchup, whereas Kings are thriving when it comes to this team fight comp.
Blinking forward, Polar Bear Mike looking to find Variety, but is going to trade out the ultimate, which Variety doesn't mind at all. That Boomba's Hammer is going to mean it's going to be back up in just a couple moments anyway. So I think that definitely isn't going to be too upsetting for the Kings. And while the Jade Dragons are putting pressure on the right-hand side, Genetics and BMT are walking down the left.
See if Variety can stop any backs here. If he can stop some backs, it might be really easy to siege this left Phoenix. But instead, Polar Bear Mike and Sanford Soccer are going to walk a little bit further down before they back. So this will just be a wash at this point. A big gold lead coming in for Camelot Kings, though. 10K, and they're still yet to get this Gold Fury.
They still have a whole minute left on Fire Giant, but whether or not they'll choose to use that to siege up the Phoenix, or at this point, just go ahead and wait. I think they really are. They've got a huge swing of advantages their way. We've got every single starter item finished up here from the Camelot Kings. Still lagging behind on most fronts here on the Jade Dragons. So this is going to be a huge power swing in favor of the Kings. And now only 2 people actually here in this left Phoenix.
By the way, Genetics level 19 here. One of Jade Dragon's biggest win conditions is to pull in a frontliner and kill them. But Genetics level 19 and very tanky at this point.
The Phoenix already falling to half HP. Pagon was charging up that ultimate, still using it to try and threaten the backline. But Variety looking to pull someone in. Final Judgment off the mark, but the Phoenix is still alive for now.
commitment there from Jade Dragons, that Thoth ultimate, those cleaner ultimates to get them off the Phoenix. Now Kings can just walk back in, make a little space for themselves, and take the Phoenix. Already have mid Phoenix down, so they're sitting pretty right now. 2
plates of hot wings in favor of the Camelot Kings, and only 1 Phoenix left standing on that right-hand side. It's a very dire position for the Dragons to be in. Row, what's the game plan here?
They have to win a fight at a Fire Giant, but it's not easy when you're missing a left Phoenix. Those Fire minions are going to be pouring down that lane. I imagine Genetics might activate this Trebuchet as well, so that'll be coming down around the same time that Fire Giant is spawning. I think Jade Dragons need to get into this left lane, clear out some waves, but they risk being caught out by a Yamoja wall or something like that while they do that. Genetics, smart move he's going to make here is to actually delay those minions. You'll see him Riptide them out of base, and that way they stay there longer. That way Jade Dragons won't be able to clear them before that Fire Giant will spawn. So you see Jade Dragons in the left lane here. Genetics expected that. You can see that on the map, but he'll delay those minions, group them up as well, and that way they can get more time to play around this Fire Giant. A great move by him, and something you don't see enough from Emojis in ranked games and casuals.
And it's going to be just a truly devastating deluge of fire minions coming through, especially if Genetics can even just stack up 2 waves. Will be a lot of pressure that they're able to get over there on that left-hand side.
See, they're not able to clear the wave. They have to just back. They see Genetics is there, just holding those waves. Now we see a double fire wave coming out of that left lane, and he'll activate the Trebuchet. What a move from Genetics. Great macro play out of this player. This is how he thrives. He loves these late-game teamfight comps. He loves this, this map movement. They're able to get that mid-Phoenix straight after that Fire Giant, which is up now, but not a big deal. But this left lane double wave plus Trebuchet, somebody from the Jade Dragons is going to have to deal with it, but their alternate option is to take a fight before that wave even comes to play, so you might see them hunting soon.
Potentially. Only 25 seconds left until the Fire Giant comes crashing down to Earth. That left fire wave is making really short wave of those minions, actually. It's quite scary. Sam is finally identifying it and moving over to the left-hand side, but it is going to leave him over here while this Fire Giant respawns. One of them, it's either a Phoenix or a Titan or a Fire Giant.
But expert map play from Genetics. I want to bring it up again. It's just the fact that he's able to force Sam for Socket over here, and then Jade Dragons do not want to take a 4v5. Now we're going to see them probably wait for this EFG. I can't imagine they'll clear it before then. They could if they wanted to, but I think they should wait, get that EFG while Sam for Soccer is dealing with this Trebuchet and a 3rd fire wave at this point.
And look at
he's struggling.
Look at the rest of the map position. I mean, Sam's taking a lot of damage from this Trebuchet, but the map positioning from the Jade Dragons row tells me they want nothing to do with this Fire Giant. They don't care. They would way rather try and defend at that last bastion, that right Phoenix. I think, do they get that a little bit early?
Might have been just right on the dot. I think they'll be kicking themselves if they got it too early. I think it's fine. You can see the purple amongst the red there and amongst the orange in the buff there. So I think that is enhanced Fire Giant buff, and they will destroy these Phoenixes in just a couple hits. They may wait around here and just wait for their left wave to push up because they still have Fire Giant waves that someone will have to deal with. It's just going to take some time before they come into play. So we might see a bit of a lull in action here while we wait for the minions to push up.
Well, they do have 3.5 minutes on that Fire Giant buff, right? He steps right up already. Fine, okay. Expending one of those charges of the Cleo ultimate. Pagon is threatening the final judgment still. Camelot Kings, as you mentioned, they're just jiggling around at this point. They've got plenty of time to play with.
Yeah, they're just waiting for those minions to come up. Even Sam for Soccer having to hold a wave in mid there as well. He won't have to go back to mid anymore, but Kings being smart, not pushing up too much. Maybe a couple hits on the Phoenix if they're lucky. In fact, half health already. That's a luxury.
Yeah, that was just based on one step back that the Jade Dragons took.
Yep.
Kings were able to walk in, just hit it a few times, and look at that. The Phoenix nearly dead. 1 or 2 more autos should do it from the Camelot Kings. And, well, the rest of the Jade Dragons, they have to back off at this point. They've got too many waves pouring into the base. Mid wave nearly breaching that middle Phoenix. The left wave stacking up on the left-hand side. The left Phoenix has just respawned, but both of these are weak.
And now they can actually use that left wave for mid Phoenix here as well. Somebody will have to go over there and respect that wave, and they just get this mid Phoenix for free. Jade Dragon's not willing to fight at all at this point. Polar Bear Mike usually very confident in trying to pick a frontliner and pull them into his backline, but he's just not able to do it in this matchup.
The Kings got a whole bucket of chicken, and now they're heading back over to the Oni wave. They want to make sure these fire waves are as strong as they can possibly be before looking to crack that base. This is a best-of-3 series, though, Ro.
Yes.
So, at this point, do you think the Jade Dragons are kind of going, okay, well, let's start thinking about it. What should we do for the next game? Or is there still a light at the end of the tunnel here?
I think these players are not the type to really give up on any game, and it is still a relatively close game. Obviously, we're talking about an almost 20k gold difference, but it's just one item per god, really, at this point. So the XP doesn't matter at this point. Polar Bear Mike just needs one more level, and that level doesn't do much anyway. And then just the gold comes into play for that one item. However, we do see on the side of Camelot Kings a lot of potions. They still have that EFG, so they still have time to siege with their huge amount of gold lead and their items, and these Oni waves coming up in the side lanes too.
No trebuchets available, but I don't think the Camelot Kings is going to be too worried. Not the best at attacking that Titan, as we've seen a couple missed shots. Not a great ADC player is the trebuchet.
No, it's not. It has pretty slow auto attacks, but somebody that does not have slow auto attacks is Netroid, who will be able to burn down this Phoenix in an instant. Variety getting very confident here now that he has that loner as well.
Pulling back, Polar Bear Mike, and already is in the ground, and the Riptide's gonna keep him back for more. No Scarab's blessing to save the life of the support. Captain Twig blinking forward, looking to find the damage on the sand for Soccer, but the return is gonna be good. Netroid falls down to half HP as well, but this is gonna be fine, okay? Falling down next, 3 remaining defenders here. The Jade Dragons have to do the impossible, and the Camelot Kings,
They'll stay.
they're waiting around for a little bit. They're looking for that left Oni wave to push through. And at the moment, the Jade Dragons have to get distracted. The healing from Genetics is pouring in. The Camelot Kings are too. And now the Titan is the main focus. There's the River's Rebuke. Up and down goes Netroid, trying to slow down everyone he can. But the Jade Dragons, no option left. Kings take game 1.
Very smart and calculated play from that group of players. They don't push their lead at all when they don't need to. They're just waiting for that mid game, just waiting to touch that late game. And as soon as they hit level 20, even before they hit level 20, they're able to win a huge team fight against the Jade Dragons there and hit level 20 right after that with a Fire Giant, get all the towers, the huge gold lead. And from that, they just played calculated and slow. They didn't need to rush the win, even though they were in control. We saw Genetics hold the waves. We saw them use the Trebuchet in a smart way. We saw them, delay and wait for their waves to push up. And then even at the end, when they're 5v3 with 3 Phoenixes down, they wait for the big Yemoja roll before they really commit to the Titan. Smart play by them.
Cool, calm, and collected. Now, will the Jade Dragons be able to rise back from the ashes? Or will the Kings finish off this mythical beast? Find out after the break.
intoxicated. We're automated and overpopulated. Don't you know we're the walking dead, dead, dead? Our lives were meant to be this bleak. Somehow they got into our heads, heads, in our heads. We're wide awake, yet still asleep. We're the walking dead. We're the walking dead, dead. Oh, 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 oh.
And welcome back to Smite Masters, brought to us by our good friends over at Alienware. Make sure that you are checking out our sponsors, Alienware, here in Season 9 of the SPL by going over to the social media at Instagram and Twitter at Alienware and AlienwareArena.com to see all the cool things that they have in store for you, and also be able to check out the cool machines that our pros are playing on, not just here in the studio, but also in the comfort of their own home, the Aurora Ryzen 10 desktops. So thank you so much to Alienware for coming back in Season 9 of the SPL and being able to bring us all the action out here on the Battleground in the studio and at home for our players and for you, the fans at home. Game number 1 started out really nice for the Jade Dragons. They were able to find a good early lead. Camelot Kings, though, ever-the-present farmers on the map, ever-the-present macro play, able to at least bounce back and bring it to an even. But, Trelly, I really got to highlight the one team fight over by the Fire Giant that really swung this game wide open. Genex finding 3 people in the midst of the River's Rebuke, and immediately Netroid able to get a full triple kill after that one. And from that point on, man, the Kings just ran the show.
Yeah, it really seemed like the Jade Dragons came out. They had a good start. They did exactly what I thought they would do with finding some pressure in that solo, and that's really where the T-Bow pick would shine. Trying to get Final K ahead was the name of the game. And if you look, even with the kills in the favor of the Jade Dragons, the farm was never that far gone. It's only about a 2K gold lead at that point. And it's 5-1, but look at the gold. The Camelot Kings were never out, and they knew they had this late game presence. As you highlighted, Netroid gets a triple kill there, but it was all because of the setup from Genetics. The rivers were so clean, and then the Riptide just made sure that everyone was stuck, and no one from the Jade Dragons were able to escape there. They just sat there and waited and waited until that late game portion where they knew their comp was really going to come online. And Ro was great to highlight as well the way that Genetics was manipulating the minions with that Trebuchet, saying, hey, we already got one Fire Giant. You have to defend these fire minions, but I'm going to keep them here with the Riptide long enough so that once the Fire Waves and the Trebuchet push down, someone has to leave. Sam for Soccer had to go, and then you get Enhanced Fire Giant for free.
And then you get this play right here. This is the one that I was talking about. Right at 24 minutes, you get a full wipe, triple kill for Netroid. Genetics setting up so much with these Riptides. And that's the one thing that we always talk about with the emoji players. The good emoji players know how to play the God. They make sure to get their heals. They can land their stuns, maybe throw up a good ultimate or two. The greats and the masters of this God are the ones who can truly utilize those Riptides to their fullest extent, punishing players for being out of positions, catching out entire teams essentially. And this is why it's so rare that we see this God make it through at the top level of play, because every one of the supports in the league can play this God at a top level. Genetics is able to do it to a level, in the same vein, I also have to throw, even though he's not playing right now, I also have to throw Wrong You in that same category. Between Wrong You and Genetics, those might be the 2 best Yemoja players that we have on field because of their ability to use the Riptide in that ultimate.
Yeah, only 3,000 damage done by Genetics. That's because it was mostly set up with the Riptides and just
healing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not even concerned about the healing. I'm concerned about the fact that the Jade Dragons could not stand where they wanted to. They couldn't walk where they wanted to because Genetics simply said, no, you're coming closer to us or you're being pushed away from us. Either way, just great play by this Yemoja. Genetics was able to command the map until his carries were able to do all the damage they needed to in the later game portion. So now, the question stands. Do the Jade Dragons let that happen again? I think me and you would both agree, no. If they are able to first pick it, yeah, sure, let it through. If not, Yemoja probably needs to be banned away.
I'm in wholehearted agreement with you there. We talked a lot about the cleanup yesterday for Final K, how well it looked, and it still looked good in this game. The problem just came down to the front line of the Camelot Kings was just too much to handle at that point. Between the healing coming from the Baron, the CC lockdown that he provided, the Riptides and Ultimates that were coming out of Genetics, plus his overwhelming healing that he was able to throw out there, and maybe just the lack of the ability to get away from most of that for the side of the Jade Dragons. I believe only Panda Cat was able to actually get out of the walls of his own merits. Everybody else had to depend on the Phantom Shell.
Yeah, and looking at that duo lane, Panda Cat was finding a lot of success just in the solo 1v1 matchup. I mean, I think Ho Yi should be winning the 1v1 up against Chernobog, but he still showed a lot of dominance. Playing through Panda Cat could be a good idea in this game number 2.
We'll jump into picks and bans for game 2 and see if the Dragons do ban away this Umoja, because if I'm the Camelot Kings and I have a game like that for Genetics, I'm going to give him that god every day of the week.
It's gone.
The Jade Dragons are not going to be giving him that god, though. Poseidon and Umoja, rightfully so, banned away.
Yeah, now you have to think about... I was going to say, the Kings don't really have to ban away the Mercury because they're first pick here, and it looks like they are looking for something else. So they'll ban away the Mercury themselves. The Jade Dragons are going to throw another shot at Genetics and ban away that Ymir, which a pseudo wall. Oh, they're just...
This is Season 8 style of play against the Kings. I remember watching a set where 5 bans, 5 Guardians got taken away from Genetics. A 6th one gets picked up for one team support, and then a 7th Guardian was picked up for solo lane. So Genetics had to go 8 gods deep in his god pool. Ends up picking Cerberus and kind of carries the game. It's one of those players similar to guys like Benny Q, even similar to vein of like Oath in the SCC. You can throw so many bans to these players, but they've still got something in that back pocket.
Yeah, this has to be a Jingwei, right? Chernobog for fine, okay, and then a Jingwei. Yeah, it had to be. There's no way that you're letting Jingwei get through right now. I think that just the strongest ADC on the map at the moment. AMC is getting banned before that. Again, the Kings had to know this was coming. They wanted to make sure that they got Ula. They wanted to make sure that BMT had some pressure in the mid lane. And I honestly think it's not so much that BMT loves Uller, which we know he's very good at it, and he does, but giving some sort of pressure in that mid lane, you have to try and match that presence that Pagon has. He had a good game on the Thoth. Wasn't great, and it's not one of those picks that can hard carry a game without a strong front line. I just think the Kings look too good this time around, though. I think the Jade Dragons should be pretty happy with this draft. Panda Cat getting that Jingwei. And the Chernobog, I think, will probably be going over to fine okay in that solo lane, but you could certainly throw it in the mid lane as well. There's a few different avenues you could go with that. The Camelot Kings, though, they're trying to answer back.
Important to note that Oleron is still up, and that's something that's been thrown over towards the mid lane with these double hunter comps. The Uller has been going more so towards the mid lane, but we have seen a few Uller solos. Do you think that's something that the Kings could do, is throw Uller in that solo lane so that way they can pick up the Oleron for themselves and keep it out of the hands of the Dragons?
I don't imagine Oleron ever goes to solo. That just seems too easy to camp.
No, Uller to solo, Oleron to go to mid.
Okay, then yeah, that could certainly be an option. Okay, I thought you said Uller solo.
No, not solo run. No.
Yeah, I was gonna say that just seems like a free farm camp for Sampras Soccer. Kali is going to be picked, and Baron Somni is just going to be run back here. So another late game style draft, but they're also covering their bases. I think Kali is a little bit more early centric than we need to believe, and I think there's a lot of build paths that can make sure that she gets online earlier than she used to. Still has that late game hard carry potential, but also is no slouch in the early game. And Uller, he's just got twice the abilities of everyone in that early game, so it's going to be a pretty easy time. Now the Jade Dragons get to answer back with how many Guardians they have banned. You got to think, does Mike want to go to this Fafnir before it gets banned away? I mean, he was looking pretty solid on it yesterday. I know that, again, we've been memeing on him because he tweeted himself. This was not us. He's the one who was saying,
himself.
Yeah, he was the one saying that his Fafnir is not that good and he can't hit the abilities. But I think he looked pretty darn good on it, and it's going to be going pretty well with Chernobog and a Jingwei. You're right to highlight they don't have too much magical damage, though. I don't think that Oleron screams to me a Pagon pick, but I'm sure he's probably got one in the back pocket, right?
Yeah, that's always the weird thing. It's like, yes, it's a great pick for any team to really grab right down the mid line, but does Pagon really want to play that god? Surely Pagon has got to have in his pocket, knowing how popular that this pick is, so I imagine he does have some kind of an Oleron. We won't get to see it just yet. Instead, Serket picked up for the Jade Dragons. This is something that PBM had ran yesterday. Was able to find some decent success on it, get some early pressure. Still has some flex potential. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that it can still go to the jungle, which is where Serket is more geared towards after her restatting and rebalancing. But it seems that teams like the Jade Dragons are fine with just having a decent CC bot in their support role.
Yeah, I love that. PBM can be so aggressive, so annoying, just in your face at all times. And you're like, hey, can we throw some damage into Serket? No, because she's simply going to get out. Anything you put onto her, she has way too much mobility and ways to escape. And just a great great counter to Kali. You just simply last breath whenever she goes into that destruction. There's no healing. Even if you get your passive, even if you get your target and get that full heal, you won't get any of it, and then you can essentially die after the fact. With a support Serket build, you're not going to be killing after. Usually if you're like a full damage jungler, you can just say, I'm going to ult you right as destruction's running out. You'll go away and bleed to death. That's not really going to be happening here. I think the CC is more so what the Jade Dragon's going to be focusing on, and the fact that Mike will just be so mobile and annoying for the Kings to try and deal with.
The Kings will take a shot at Fine-OK at the least with their next ban, King Arthur, taken away. And it still does leave some room in the air where maybe you ban a Kleena just in case this Chernobog isn't going to the solo lane. Maybe it's going over to the mid for Pagon instead. So it leaves that question open for the Kings. They're able to take at least one god away from Fine-OK to kind of ensure that he's at least not going to get that Power Warrior. The Jade Dragons, they ban away Artemis to try and make sure that Netroid has to dig a little bit further deep into the god pool. I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe saw a Rom ban here. That's a god that Netroid really depended on a lot whenever, in the latter half of Season 8 in towards Season 9.
Really?
Izanami was also in that category, but it's not the one that I imagined that the Jade Dragons would have banned away here.
Yeah, I think Iza is going to have a solid time in this meta, but we just haven't seen anyone really going to that lane pressure. It doesn't really matter right now. There's not too much farm on the duo side anymore that you have to get pressure in the duo lane. These hunters are essentially left on an island. They just get to farm for free, sit underneath the tower. You're not going to lose too much gold. You're just going to be getting gilded procs. And again, I think the Kings just do not want to deal with King Arthur, even though the Chernobog is probably going to go to Fine-OK. I mean, last game, the Kleena was probably going to go to Fine-OK. They just clearly do not want to deal with King Arthur. They don't want to give their team mascot to the other side. Maybe that's their kryptonite, so they will just keep banning that one away. Now the Jade Dragons get to answer that question. Are they going to be sending Chernobog in the mid lane, or will they just send it over to solo?
Are you that impatient for your
That
death?
honestly doesn't even answer my question.
No, it really doesn't with how much that Fine-OK has been playing that god, but at the same time with how much we have been seeing Kleena flex towards the mid role now. And even still has some potential to go over to the jungle, though I don't think we've seen a Kleena jungle very much this week, these last 2 weeks, even if at all, and it wasn't very popular even kind of at the tail end, so maybe less so on the Kleena jungle these days. Serket still has the flex for jungle or support. Still up in the air for the Jade Dragons. We're going to need maybe one more pick to kind of line this out, but at the same time, it's still up in the air. I do like this Fafnir pick just in case this Serket wasn't going over to Mike, so you can keep some of that away from the Jade Dragons.
It looks like they are going to go for the Shibalanke here. Some great team fight ultimates on the side of the Kings. They've got great auto attack buff with the Coerce from Fafnir, and they have essentially 3 auto attackers in that build, Kali, Uller, and the X-Ball. It looks like it will be the Hebo jungle, so the Kleena and the Chernobog can go either way. More often than not, I think Fine-OK takes that Kleena into the solo lane, and then Pagon will just be able to go the Cherno in mid. And we're just going to see PBM once again on this Serket being as annoying as possible, being that frontliner that essentially can't die.
The Kings have a decent bit of team fight within their builds up here, though it really does feel, Charlie, that both these teams have drafted a more pick-oriented style of composition. As different as they are, it seems to accomplish the same goal, objective shred, and finds those kinds of picks. Which of these two teams do you think has that slight edge in the early game when it comes to that kind of play style?
When it comes to early game, I have to look at the Serket. Serket, one of the best early game initiators that is in Smite currently. Just blink, Cobra's Kiss, you're essentially taunting 2 people. You can set up so much. In the later stages of the game, though, I'm looking at a Kali, I'm looking at a Shibalanke, and I'm looking at a Fafnir. That's going to be hard to deal with. The Jade Dragons, you're going to be a little tanky on the Serket, but you're essentially going 4 hard carries and a Serket, whereas I imagine Captain Twig can just shred through all of them like butter and immune the majority of the crushing wave damage just with destruction. I mean, you can immune it all, really. You can't die. So if I'm imagining the Jade Dragons want to get active early on the back of Polar Bear Mike. I think PBM and Stanford Soccer will roam around the map together and just essentially be joined at the hip trying to find any sort of target. And if the Kings, they're going to be happy with just stalling this one out the same way they did last time. Maybe go a little down in the early, but very confident in their late game team fight.
I mean, late game is going to be, it feels like it could just be the name of the game for both these two squads. Sure, the Dragons could try and run it down early, but as you say, the Kings definitely have a great stall to be able to make it to that point. So then it comes down to these dances around the Fire Giant, these defenses around Phoenixes and towers and whatnot. Which of these two teams do you kind of put a slight edge to when it comes to their actual siege offense / defense?
I just think both of these teams have the double hunters, obviously, but Jingwei is so safe. You got the Chernobog dive. I think as long as the Jade Dragons are able to completely split up the Kings, right? Say, hey, we're going to be fighting over here, and then Chernobog ults up, draws someone over, and just make sure you're always fighting with a man advantage. They should be able to take that portion of the game. But again, the Kings are so smart and so calculated. They're not going to take any bad fights. They might give up a pick here and there, but they're not going to let that gold lead climb too high. You always have to be CCing Sam for Soccer because Crushing Wave is just the best confirm on the map right now. If you're looking at FG, I expect to see a lot of pressure put towards that Hebo so he can't free cast. I think the Kings got exactly what they wanted here, J-Mac.
I mean, we're looking at potentially clean a Habwa over to the right side. Otherwise, it's Chernobog and Habwa over for Final K and Sam in that right side. Do you imagine similar to last game where they wanted to put pressure over there? Maybe we'll see that happen over here once again in game number 2. Do or die for the Jade Dragons. A loss here means they go home. Can they bring it back in game 2?
And that is the question, J-Mac. We've already seen the Camelot Kings play so dominantly in game number 1. Jade Dragons have to pull some stuff out of the bag, and maybe this Circuit in the support role is the answer.
It looks like they're doubling down, really. They had a small lead last game against the Kings in the early game, maybe about 2K at its peak, and they want to push that closer to the tipping point. You know, when there's maybe a 4 to 5K gold lead in the early game, then the enemy teams would start to like give up more objectives, and suddenly that gold lead snowballs out of control. So if Jade Dragons can do what they want to do here and push that gold lead past the tipping point, then they need more early pressure, and that's what they've picked. They've got the Circuit that is a more offensive pick than what Khepri is. We did see him go the blink on Khepri last game, but a lot of the time he's using it to get out of River's rebuke. He's using it to blink to teammates to save them. But this time, I can't imagine we're going to see any use out of this Circuit blink apart from offensive.
Yeah, and she's got some pretty decent targets here. Genetics, especially in the early game, will be pretty susceptible to that damage, especially if he's already used that leap. Also, has to stand still for a long time. Could be a very easy target for Sam and Pagon in that late game.
That's right, and I think Trelly mentioned, or maybe it was J-Mac, on the desk they were talking about where this Cleaner might go and where this Chernobog might go. And we're seeing Chernobog in the solo lane again. We've seen them kind of flip-flop depending on the team, but it looks like Pagon just being more comfortable on the Cleaner here. Final K can make those rotations from a faraway lane. Last game, they had opportunities to gank Variety, and they just kept ganking him in the early game to try to get an early lead on him, and it was successful. This time, I can't imagine they're going to gank too much when they have a Chernobog on that side of the map, so I think Sam will take it to the fight, maybe in mid lane.
The blink in from Twig, double stun from Incense is going to lead to a lot of damage, but the beads from Pagon able to help him stay alive for now. BMT really willing to follow up there, and I'm loving this aggressive playstyle from Twig, trying to get things done early.
Yeah, and that's what Sam Fasoko should be wanting to do as well. Once he can get out of this mid lane, because they do lose this 2v2, it is rough for them. But once he can start hunting in the side lanes for ganks, then it becomes a little easier. Final K can use that global ultimate as well to assist in maybe a dual lane gank, for example. This Shibalonke not being the hardest target to gank at all.
No, absolutely. Nitro does have that CCI dash, though, so it does make him a little bit safer than maybe your next hunter, but still absolutely not the worst hunter to try and gank. Meanwhile, over here on the right-hand side, Variety's got to be favoring this matchup a little bit more, right? He's not nearly as pressured out as he was being against the Cleo.
Yeah, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yes, he'll be able to farm more comfortably, and he actually can try to push Final K onto that tower, but then all of a sudden you're a Baron Samedi and you're pushed up in your lane, so you do become more vulnerable in ganks. So Sam Fasoko could look towards this lane, but I think instead he'll just go for the neutral farm, get his blue buffs. Both teams will get their blue buffs, and just be comfortable with the early game.
But like, Sam coming towards this right-hand lane, it's inevitable.
Yeah,
right?
it won't be the last time we see it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Variety, we saw him last game get ganked relentlessly by this Habwa, and I don't think this game will be any different. Has to wait until he gets some stacks to be able to really live against these ganks from the Habwa.
A lot of commitment there from Genetics to try to steal that purple buff. I'm not sure if we saw it on camera, but he did use the hammer, didn't manage to steal it, tried to use the jump, didn't manage to steal it then either. So he could have been in danger of dying to a Circuit and Jingwei, but instead they have to catch that wave that was pushed under the tower. So Netroid doing a good job at farming and controlling the map at this rate.
PPM gets caught out here on the left-hand side, but so far so good for both of these teams. There's not really a massive gap forming. It's well, dead even on a both practical and literal level here. In gold at the very least. XP should be roughly the same. I'm not sure if we can see the... Yeah, it's the exact same.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're going to see, but that is very readily able to change as soon as Circuit is able to get out of that lane and make rotations and able to gank with that blink. A good beads forced already out of Final K. He's not level 5 yet either, so you could see a Fafnir maybe come over and get some action on in the favor of the Kings, but Sam Fasoko now able to gank Variety as well because he has no beads, he has to go to the teleport, and he has no ultimate available.
That's exactly what Sam's doing already here, blinking forward. The damage is pretty good, but Variety
He'll dive.
still somehow able to stay alive. No tank stats available for the Baron, but I guess just not quite enough damage built on Sam just yet. Doesn't have that Doom Orb fully built.
That's right, yeah. Once you get the Doom Orb fully built, you do get a fair bit more damage, but right now, also Final K just not able to connect any damage of his own.
Twig, though, over here on the right-hand side, looking to find Fino K, but not quite in range of the incense stun. Going to be off the mark, and Fino will be just fine.
Yeah, very safe pick, Chernobog. Even though he doesn't have that beads, he still has the ultimate available if he needed it, and of course he has those double dashes. There was a chance Captain Twig could have caught one of those dashes and able to stop him there, but I can't imagine they'll be able to kill him either without Variety having any mana. Variety, though, is basically got his ticket to his Warlock stash. He'll be backing now, I imagine, buying the whole thing, and then start building those stacks. Then he'll start really getting wave pressure and able to make some rotations.
Does have the teleport available to him too, so not missing out on any farm over here on the right-hand side. Panda, though, might lose out on a couple minions worth of gold, but is able, luckily, to keep those minions out of his tower for now. Genetics and PBM making the rotation over, just making sure everyone's fine and no one's fighting, because we don't like fighting.
Not in the early game, apparently.
No.
It's interesting to see Polar Bear Mike actually walk away from that purple buff. Genetics still hovering around, so he may look for the steal, but he could be being baited in as well, because Sanford Soccer is ready to pounce.
Just back to this slow-paced game. No real advantage forming in any way, shape, or form. These two teams so even.
This is our biggest advantage yet, really. The Scorpion will give that global gold onto the side of Kings. Kings also getting aggressive around this purple buff. I don't think Genetics will be committing his dash this time to try to steal it. He'll just go and soak this wave of Netroid, who's just been able to solo his purple buff as well. So building a decent lead for himself and building a good global lead as well, considering they've gotten both of those Scorpions now.
Yeah, it's
A good global lead.
It's
300 gold, but that's more than 50.
it's something, and that's something that they could potentially build on. I am looking mainly towards Captain Twig here. The Carly definitely wants more and more gold to be able to get online. Now that the Golden Blade is online, we'll be able to farm a little bit faster and hopefully help accelerate that build.
Yeah, not a lot of action, but that's what Kings want. We saw them do this last game. They're able to stem the bleeding and make sure Jade Dragons don't get much of an early lead. This time, Polar Bear Mac really going to force this lead.
Up onto the
Good
coffin goes Variety, but not able to find the immunity. Has to do some dodging, but no amount of fancy footwork is going to save you from Sam Fasaka's jazz hands.
Well played by Polar Bear Mike there. I think, correct me if I'm wrong about this, or maybe chat can correct me if I'm wrong later on, but I think Polar Bear Mike was able to ult Baron, absorb his ultimate, CC immune it, and then be able to throw him as well. So a perfect counterplay by Polar Bear Mike, and maybe one of the big reasons he's picking this circuit into the Baron.
Yeah, absolutely. If he can manage to replicate that every single time, I think Variety is going to be much less of an issue for the Jade Dragons this game.
And that is maybe why they've just picked it. You know, last game they saw, they bullied out Variety a fair amount, and this time, instead of having a Kepri, they have the Socat, and they're able to really get some more action going over there, which makes it much easier for Sam Fasaka to just focus on his farm. They can focus on damage as well. He doesn't need to worry about it being much harder to find those ganks, because Variety's not going to fall for it again, right? He's not going to just die to a Hebo like he was last game, because he got caught out of position a couple times. He won't fall for that. This time, Polar Bear Mike doubling down on the draft and saying, you know what, we'll be back, and this time you really won't have an option.
Yeah, it's going to be all down to the Kings, I think, to weather that storm and sustain it. Now, sitting about 1,000 gold up, the Jade Dragons, able to really push that first blood advantage. Panda Cat not going to get stunned. Genetics not quite on the mark with the hammer.
Last time he played Fafnir, I remember he did tweet after the game and said something about missing maybe 70% of his hammers in the game.
Nice.
But when they hit, it really matters. They get a kill when they hit, and I remember I was watching his stream last night as well. He was asking his chat what he should play today, and I suggested the hammer. I suggested he tries again at
The
hitting
hammer.
those. Yeah,
That,
and
that's
he laughed.
That's the whole character.
He laughed, but this time Jade Dragons have banned away all of his support picks, so he's had to go down to a Fafnir. He did have Terror open, so surprising to see him not go for that. But good amount of pressure out of this Fafnir as well, able to invade this red buff.
And that's the difference, I think. You said not the Terror, but if you're looking at the rest of Camelot Kings' build, right, you've got Captain Twig, a very auto-attack heavy character. Netroid and BMT as well are really going to be using those auto-attacks, even if BMT is building this more ability-based route. So the Fafnir Being able to just go, hey, your auto attacks have more auto attack in them now. Go do that.
And it's not like they really need the AoE or the healing from Terra. They have that from Baron. Meanwhile, Pagon actually cashing Captain Twig here.
No silence available, and I think the destruction should be on the board for Captain Twig, but that is where Serket shines. This is the big counter, ladies and gentlemen, right there. A tale as old as time, Serket versus Kali.
There is a reason we don't see the Serket often. She's traditionally not a good support, but when you get a great counter pick like this at this high level of play, he's able to counter the Kali, not able to heal, able to counter the Baron, not able to heal, and is able to CC them both during their ultimates as well. So great play by Polar Bear Mike and a very well seen opportunity to pick a Serket support, which we don't see often.
Could be an opportunity for the Jade Dragons to start bleeding the Camelot Kings dry. This roster, though, not unfamiliar to that situation. Camelot Kings are master of being able to sit on behind, rebuild your lead slowly, or just even find a moment, a singular strike to chip through the armor.
That's right, and as long as they can slow this bleeding, which is, you know, Genex's job right now, he's just hanging out and trying to force, maybe steal some buffs, get lucky. He's able to just soak some farm in mid lane. They just keep up and they keep active, but without over-pressuring, without overextending too much and risking their lives in terms of just, you know, finding some farm. They're able to pressure these Scorpions though, and this is where they often make up a lot of their global gold.
Already able to find some rotations though. The Jade Dragons are on their way in, and the Camelot Kings have to drop it for now. Pagon able to get a pretty decent ult onto BMT, who does have to leap over the wall. Pagon though in some trouble, but scratch that, it's not Pagon at all. Variety is the name of the first casualty of war.
We're talking about Kings not overextending. You know, they're not so strong in this early game, especially with this draft. But this time, Polar Bear Mike's ultimate comes straight back up, and he's able to fight again, and they're still looking.
PBM, I would say he might be in trouble, but it's going to be Twig once again. The damage turned onto him so potent from this Jade Dragons roster, and at the moment, that is what this team is bringing, is sheer, unadulterated damage that they are able to output onto the roster.
And that's what they've been doing the last couple of days as well. They just pick one support that has a good amount of setup, Serket in this regard, and then they pick 4 really high damage, really consistent damage gods, and they're able to find kills when they want them. But gotta put the blame on Kings there a little bit. They were the ones that were pushing up and pressuring the Scorpion when they were at risk of dying like that. Variety still has no beads. His ultimate really isn't much use against the Serket, so they have to respect it more.
Captain Twig once again getting caught out, and he's dead before he hits the ground. The Jade Dragons abuse this lack of vision the Camelot Kings have in their own jungle.
And this is, we talked about the tipping point, you know, when you get to that 4K lead and you could transition into a 5K lead, we're getting closer to that. Now Jade Dragons with a bigger lead this game than they had last game, so their double down has worked so far. Polar Bear Mike's ultimate coming back up soon, so they should be able to look for another opportunity also. This is where it starts to get dangerous for the Kings. They need to stop the bleeding, but they need to be careful at the same time. Polar Bear Mike already looking back towards Variety. No beads available. He does have the ult, but we've seen him counter it once and he can do it again.
I will say though, Ro, the positioning of this aggression has been mainly onto Variety and Twig.
For good reason, yeah.
Two characters who definitely thrive off having that late game, right? They want to get to level 20 ASAP, get those bombers, hammers online, but that does leave the rest of the team to stay even here, and that is what the Camelot Kings have done, even in mid, even in the dual lane as well.
But they just need a couple kills to be able to pull objectives. Polar Bear Mike might be a kill himself.
Ooh, yeah, definitely in a bad position. Already used all of his mobility, rooted back down. There's the stun, there's the kill. Captain Twig puts the first one on the board for the Kings.
Yeah, they're still hunting too, but this time Variety, I don't think I'm able to catch them, but the sprint will help.
Hammer axe off the mark, but jumping in. Genetics looking to find more. Sam for Socket, the second one. Double kill for Captain Twig, and Fine OK jumps in just to have to get out. And it looks like the Pyromancer could be the play for the Kings.
And all of a sudden, just as we see it last game, Kings, as soon as they get a little bit going in their favor, they're able to pull the objectives immediately. This is by design. They just need to not fall too far behind the early game, and then they'll win the mid game. This time, a kill being essentially gifted to them by Polar Bear Mike because he's hunting for those kills. There's pros and cons to every kind of play. He's hunting, so he's at a higher risk, and this time, Variety actually outplays Polar Bear Mike. He's able to spin his ultimate, so when Polar Bear Mike ults him, he's not able to absorb it. So when Polar Bear Mike jumps off his back and tries to throw him, Variety pulls him back in and able to secure the kill. But then chasing down the Hebo as well, that was an extra gift.
It's such a good snake too from Variety. Throws it out, snares Polar Bear Mike so he can't move any further away. Camelot Kings capitalize perfectly.
And all
on
of a
that
sudden,
advantage.
yeah, the jungle and the solo laner that we were worried about, they've got 2 deaths each, but now they've been involved in 2 kills each as well. So they're back in the lead, they're back comfortable, and they are scaling gods. Sure, they might be down a level, but that does not matter when they're closer to scaling anyway. You know, I would take a level 15 Baron over a level 16 Hebo, for example, or a level 16 Chernobog in that scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. These two characters just so good at moving into that later portion. Variety's going to be healing more. He's going to be more tanky in that ultimate. He's going to be able to use that around more people. And PandaCat forced to use the airstrike to get away.
And we see some of that build out of Netroid as well. A good amount of power, a small amount of crit, and a small amount of life still. But when he gets those crits, they are big numbers. 330 there on PandaCat as well. So PandaCat respecting that damage and ulting out before he takes any more.
Split there. Genetics was able to steal away one of those
That's what he's gotta do.
oracles. So exactly as you said, gets lucky, is able to steal away a little bit more farm. BMT looks like he could be the next target. 3 people here jumping forward. PBM looking to find something, but Genetics walks out of the left-hand side. But Mike doesn't want to engage this one. Is just going to zigzag away.
Yeah, Mike wanted to get out of there the whole time. After he had jumped in, wasn't able to find anything. It turns out Genetics was behind him and he wanted to get out. But he was saving his dash until he could get some help from his team. But as soon as you see Sanfasokka knock up for Genetics, Polar Bear Mike able to dash out there safely without any risk of his dash being caught. So good play by them, good team play by them. But really, we need to see more action from this Jade Dragons roster if they're going to take it to this Kings roster in the mid-late game, I'd say.
They've definitely slowed down
They
the
have.
pace, and that's dangerous.
That's in favor of
because
Kings.
Exactly. The Kings want a slow game. They're happy playing the slow game. As the Dragons, as you mentioned, bro, really have to go back to doing what they were doing before, catching Twig out in the jungle with, you know, abusing Camelot King's lack of vision. It looks like they might be getting a little bit scared, maybe some wet feet.
Maybe. I think either way, this is probably still a better scenario than they were in last game, because at this point in last game, their win conditions were dwindling. But still, Jade Dragons, even though they haven't built a lead for themselves, always have that win condition of being able to catch a frontliner or catch a Circuit or something with, Circuit, sorry, and able to blow them up quickly. And this time, they don't have to deal with the Emoja walls, and this time, they only have to really deal with the Baron AoE. So it is a bit easier for them, but still not exactly where they wanted to be with this comp, I imagine.
There's a very different style, right? Last time the Kings were basically going, hey, if you fight us here, there's a very good chance you're just going to be stuck there between
Yes.
the River's Rebuke. This time around, the Camelot Kings go, okay, well, we can't make you stay in a place, but we can now make everyone do double damage so that when you are in a place, you're going to take extra. And look at the damage that BMT is able to output. Pagon, one more auto away from death.
That's the danger. If you get hit by an axe in any of those mid lane or solo lane or even dual lane Ulas up against any of them, you will take most of your health, so you have to get out of there fast. And that results in a free tier 1 tower just because Big Man Tings was able to find that hammer, that axe, sorry.
Yeah, it's, I mean, hey, listen, they're similar weapons.
They've got both as well.
One
so.
of them is spiky, one of them is blunt, but this time around the Gold Fury looking to be taken by the Camelot Kings, blinking forward. It looks like PBM's trying to do something, but instead the zigzag trying to get away, but Genetics over the wall finds the stun. Captain Twig blinking forward, trying to find extra, but is going to get stopped out. PandaCat able to cease the aggression from Captain Twig, but the Kings walk away with a Fury in tow.
Yeah, but that is a big commitment from Variety. He actually had to walk his way over there. It wasn't a teleport, so Finoke, when he went up in the air and didn't choose to fly down into this team fight, he was able to stay in that solo lane and get a tier 1 tower for himself. So gold still relatively even, despite a Gold Fury going in advantage of the Kings there, and a tier 1 tower as well. So I imagine Kings, again, they are happy. Variety now, honestly, his waves are just going to come closer to his tier 2 tower, so he's at less risk of being ganked, and he has a lot of health by now as well, so it's pretty easy for him to live. I imagine we'll just see them slow down the game a little bit. Maybe they did pull the trigger around level 18, 19 last game, which surprised me. They were very close to that Boomba's Hammer. I don't think Kali will get a Boomba's Hammer. She'll probably go for the Boomba's Spear just to get that extra damage, and especially the objective DPS that comes with that. But, you know, maybe just a slow game from now for the next couple levels.
Potentially, yeah. I think that pulling of the trigger, while a little bit early from Camelot Kings, comes more from happenstance. They see the opportunity, they decide, okay, we wouldn't normally, but let's go for this now. This time around, though, the Camelot Kings still waiting around.
steal.
BMT trying to go for the steal, nearly
was
finds
close.
it. But the Jade Dragons will secure their first objective of the game in terms of that high romance. We'll look to even out this gold lead a little bit more. the Kings had started to sway back in their favor, but the Dragons keeping it even.
A very close game, but I think I can confidently say, and you would probably agree with me, slight favor of Kings just
Yeah.
because of their scaling advantage. Followed by Mike's Circuit will start to fall off a little bit, in my opinion. Really, the damage is completely gone from Circuit at this point, being essentially under-leveled like all supports are, but then also having that low nose mark as well, reducing her damage. So she's just basically strictly a setup god right now, and she has a good amount of setup, but trying to taunt to maybe alt Genetics, for example, who's able to get his CC immunity off, and now Fine OK at risk.
Genetics and Captain Twig moving over, and the damage that's coming out onto Fine OK. No wall available for him. Destruction. Captain Twig finds a one, now looking to find a little bit extra. There's the stinger from PPM to try and stop Captain Twig from getting away. It's not going to be successful. Captain Soccer getting pulled back in here, but instead finds a Polar Bear Mike. Beautiful body blocking from the support player. Sam could still be in danger. Variety charging forward, still surging to find more. Genetics leaps through into the backline, but through the wall goes Pagon. And that should be the end of aggression from the Camelot Kings. Pagon, though, he's in a bad position. The Kings looking to potentially flank, but they're going to back off. This could be a Fire Giant.
This is a confident call, an ambitious call, I would say. I think Pagon has a good chance to disrupt this.
Pagon, though, he's caught out by Captain Twig, and the damage that comes through is insane. Isn't able to walk into the wall, the damage too hard. But Netroid now in so much trouble. Panda Cat lands down from the airstrike into the axe, and Variety picks that one up.
I'm calling it now. I think this may be an overconfident call from me, but I'm glad to be wrong because I want this game to go 3 sets. But I think this is Kings all the way. They're exactly where they want to be.
Fine OK, dashing through the wall, did use that ultimate to try and find some more aggression, but nothing left to come from it. The Camelot Kings are starting to really secure this lead row, and the Dragons finding it very difficult to stop that boulder rolling down the hill.
Yeah, now we see Jade Dragons getting a little desperate, flying in late to that team fight. They know they are against the clock. They know what they're up against in the Kings. They're getting close to their level 20 marks. They've got a good amount of DPS on Netroid, a good amount of DPS on Kali, and they can start a Fire Giant pretty freely. They have that no ultimate yet on Genetics, so it will be slightly slower. I'm not sure Jade Dragons even want to contest this at this point.
They don't care. Genetics has the Shogun's Kusari online. Even out of that
That's right.
draconic form, the rest of the Camelot Kings are doing just so much. Literally, Genetics' whole purpose in this game is to go, hey,
It's his
ADCs, I know you like auto attacks. Would you like more auto in your auto attack?
That's why he has the Frenzy as well, and he also has the Hastens. Like, everything about this team comp is about the auto attacks. If you need utility, well, Variety will bring it. He'll pull them back in, he'll root them, and he's able to find these as well, and they're able to find easy kills, really, on Polar Bear Mike. Once Variety really learned how this matchup worked and was able to avoid getting his ultimate cancelled out by this Circuit, he's been able to find them consistently. Any chance he wants, he's able to find a frontliner, and if a Chernobog flies in, he's able to find them. He's been landing good heals, and at this point, the team fight on the side of Kings is fully activated, and they also have a Fire Giant.
It is 100% operational. Variety and Captain Twig still waiting to find those finished starter items, and
You
I
don't
think
need them at this point. Though.
No, I agree. But if we're talking fully
Yeah, for
operational, I'm thinking the only thing really to complete the piece of the puzzle is Variety's Bumper's Hammer. I think everyone else is perfectly fine without their starter items, but this Baron really, really wants it.
A big starter item as well yet to be finished at Genetics. He will have his Compassion online eventually, and once his team can't die, and once a team fight team cannot die, then they're just going to be able to team fight even better. So if he gets to that level 17 mark from getting all of these towers and this gold lead, he'll be able to purchase that no problem, and becomes much harder. Just like last game when Genetics had a big lead, to find a kill on a frontliner, which is what Jade Dragons want to do with this style of team comp. I think Kings have done a great job at picking up this strategy of Jade Dragons, banning some of it away and then strategizing against the rest of it.
And it's truly their strength. They're such a cerebral, patient team, right?
Genetics is going to get such a big ego from you saying that, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I can't not say it. This team
It is
has,
true.
as you've identified, they have completely. They played Jade Dragons at their own game. They have been able to take away everything they love and hold dear and use it against them. They're using this heavy auto-attack based composition that Jade Dragons not necessarily premiered, but certainly showcased in such an effective way and have turned the tide.
That's right, and it's a vulnerability of the things we see when these new metas come out, when there's only been a couple weeks. I mean, it's been about a month now of this 9.5 patch that Jade Dragons have had access to it, and they're able to build this strategy
That's
up.
wild.
You only have so many picks, though. It takes years to develop deep god pools, so when you have a new strategy, you cannot build too many gold pools at that point. So once you ban away a couple of them and counterpick some others, then all of a sudden Jade Dragons are left in a much poorer spot.
Wild that we've been on this patch for a month. That is absolutely crazy. Jade Dragons able to take away the Pyromancer. For the Camelot Kings, I don't think are too worried about that one just yet. Small win for the Dragons, though. Potentially a small morale victory as BFT potentially getting caught out here is the target, but he's way too fast for Fino to find the damage. Netrioid, though, can't quite say the same. The Vuvuzelas are active, but he's taking a lot of damage. Tick, tick, boom! Polar Bear Mike falls down. Pagon follows him into the grave, and Fino K is able to find one before getting traded out. Sam is down, and now it's just Fino and PandaCat, the two ADCs from the Jade Dragons running away. Big Man Tings, who was the original target of this fight, is gonna get the turnaround. PandaCat falls down, and now it's just Fino by himself.
You have to feel for Jade Dragons right here. An understandably desperate move because of what they're up against. The Kings were close to getting a Fire Giant. They could get another one soon, but they might not even need it. They could go ahead and end the game at just after 24 minutes in this later game meta with a later game team pump because Jade Dragons doubled down in their early game and weren't able to build the early lead that they needed to build. So Kings doing a fantastic job at nullifying Jade Dragon's strength and playing to theirs.
It's not all over yet. PBM is still alive and 10 seconds left on the rest of the Jade Dragons from respawning.
back to
Sans,
the fight
Panda, and Fino K. So I think the Camelot Kings, for now, will just take these two hot chickens and run away.
Now they have the Phoenixes that they don't need as well. They can get the Fire Giant and walk over to that left Phoenix. I don't think we'll see Jade Dragon. Maybe Jade Dragons do make a Hail Mary play here and try to contest this next Fire Giant. They can defend these waves relatively easy in mid lane and the solo lane, so they don't need to worry about their Phoenixes or their Titan taking too much damage from Fire minions. So they may be able to take one more 5v5 here at the Fire Giant.
And it will be spawning soon. About 50 seconds left on the primary objective. The Camelot Kings sitting a whopping 9,000 gold in the lead. And Ro, it's all or nothing here for the Jade Dragons.
It is.
What's the strategy? What's the play?
They've got to catch somebody. They tried to catch Big Ben Tings. It didn't work out. Polar Bear Mike went on a different target in Netroid, but as soon as he turns the lights off, he pops his beads. It's really hard for his team to follow up. So the odds are stacked against them for sure. But if Polar Bear Mike can find somebody that is vulnerable without beads, which there are some of on the side of on the side of Kings right now, then they could find a quick kill before this Fire Giant spawns.
It's rough though. Genetics is level 19, and that is a very tanky Fafnir staring down the barrel of the Jade Dragon.
No beads on Twig and no beads on Netroid. That's where they need to look.
Oh, there you go. The backline has to be the target, and Twig is a very decent target for Mike to be able to catch, especially if he's looking into the backline trying to find a pickup with that destruction. Not being able to heal could be a really big disadvantage.
We're talking about no beads as well. Jade Dragons are the ones with no beads, so Kings feeling themselves confident. Variety could catch somebody with this ultimate and pull somebody in. I don't think Sam for Soccer and Polar Bear Mike are really hunting, or Pagon are really hunting for a kill right now. They're just not feeling confident because the odds are stacked against them.
Absolutely. Twig does have the Magi's Blessing available to him though, and PBM gets stunned out. Not a giant amount of follow-up, but it is decent poke, and there's not really much healing on the way of the Jade Dragons. Variety here doing a fair amount to PandaCat here as well. PBM caught out. There's going to be the stun, but no follow-up. Meanwhile, the rest of the Kings are on Sam for Soccer, and the wave is going to save him for now. But up the top side, Pagon falls. PBM falls, and now the Camelot Kings are surging down the mid lane, trying to find this end game. Only one Titan and 3 members of the Jade Dragons stand between the Camelot Kings and the Tartarus Titans. They've broken through the base, but Netrioid takes a huge chunk of damage from Fino K, and that's already going to sound the retreat bell.
Okay, that'll let them breathe a little bit, but they're still going to be up against the Fire Giant soon. 3 minutes until EFG. I think Genetics will call his team to fight this EFG sooner rather than later. Twig with a lot of DPS, and obviously the side of Double Hunter will have a lot of DPS as well. So I imagine they'll get this one pretty freely, and then just do something more traditional instead of trying to end in the early game. They'll just walk up the left Phoenix and try to end that way.
Going back to the Fire Giant, not quite EFG, still 3 minutes on that, but the Camelot Kings have been able to catapult themselves into this position so heavily that it is only 27 minutes into the game.
And it's a 10k lead, and such a swing that we see from them. We don't see much before like 12 minutes, 13 minutes, and they're usually at a deficit at that point. But as soon as it hits that mark, as soon as they get a little bit in their favor, they seem to absolutely run away with these games. And that's what they're doing now. They'll push up this left Phoenix. They still have fire minions, or a couple more waves of fire minions in this mid lane and right lane, so they'll be able to use those to pressure as well. But I don't need last game they didn't even need it. They just kind of pressured these Phoenixes because they had such a gold lead. We'll see if they do the same thing this time around.
Well, both the mid and the right Phoenix are, well, either just about to or have respawned. That middle Phoenix just sprouting back to life now. The right one should be just behind it. The Camelot Kings are going to use that advantage and start pushing up pressure towards the left-hand side, while the other two Phoenixes are still weak. This makes this left Phoenix basically essential for the Jade Dragons to try and defend.
And just before, we might have missed it as well, Camelot Kings were pinging that mid wave. They understand that that last mid wave is their last Fire Giant wave, so they're pushing right before it hits.
God.
So Pagon has to stay in that mid wave because he has to defend that that Fire Giant wave that's on the way.
But the Dragons can't even defend the left Phoenix. That's the healthiest one of all, and they just let it go for free. Meanwhile,
That's because they had to defend those fire waves. It's really well played by Camelot Kings to push when they needed to.
absolutely insane. This Camelot Kings roster have been able to just play this map like a fiddle, and now trying to push in to the middle wave as well. Netroid steps forward, and just a couple auto attacks do enough to take down the Phoenix. Just about Netroid, one more should do it. There it goes, Phoenix down. And only one left standing here, the right-hand side. All members of the Jade Dragons are here, and there are some big ultimates available. If they can connect them and get a couple picks, we could see a turnaround.
Kings will regroup now. They probably will group around Genetics, who will pop that ultimate, and they'll just get ready to blow up this Titan. It's up to the Jade Dragons now to find a pick on somebody and stop that DPS from coming onto their Titan.
This is all or nothing. The Jade Dragons staring down defeat and elimination. Camelot Kings, one more push, should be able to find a victory for them if they play their cards right now. Just trying to test the defense of the Jade Dragons, and Pagon eats an axe and most of his HP. Now Captain Twig going forward, destruction comes through. Sam Fasaka already forced to use the wave away, and Twig jumping out. Netroid in a lot of trouble, used the Aegis and the beads already, but Polar Bear Mike pulled back through, and there's the damage coming back, but Netroid falling super low. Fidoke has made his entrance and has to get out, but now the frenzy is popped. Genetics in the draconic form, and now the health bars are still favoring the Jade Dragons. They have a pool of health right behind them, but the Camelot Kings don't.
They're going to call it off for now, at least. Genetics still up in that ultimate for a while longer, but his team not feeling confident. It was odd there. We saw Captain Twig catch, I believe, Pagon, and got him down to about half health. Then he blinked in and caught Sam Fasaka and popped his ultimate. That should have been, to me at least, the go button for Genetics. Pop that ultimate and fully commit to that Phoenix. But they haven't been able to do it yet, so he hasn't got much longer on this ultimate, though he is sticking around.
All or nothing. The Jade Dragons seemingly have been in this fight for the longest of times. Genetics does come out of the draconic form, though. It's a big thing for the Camelot Kings to not have available to them, but Variety still looking to find something. Goes up
They
under the
back out
coffin
now.
for no value.
Yeah, I didn't manage to catch anything there. They're looking for something, hunting for something, but it's not easy. We are still relatively early in the game for this meta.
Just trying to find some more damage. Fino, nice immunity by dashing into the wall. Sam Fasaka already forced back. But we're running out of time on this Fire Giant row, and it looks like the Camelot Kings are finally going to pack up their bags and leave the Titan room.
This timing is awkward now. We're waiting for the EFG, but these Phoenixes are going to spawn around the same time. So the Kings really have to be hunting around this EFG while the Jade Dragons are busy clearing this wave. Or maybe EFG will spawn just before these Phoenixes. They're able to secure for free, potentially for free, and then go and siege more traditionally. So they weren't able to find any picks there, which is the reason they weren't able to get onto that Titan. They poked it a little bit, but it will heal back up. And then these Phoenixes are also healing back up.
But the longer they wait, the longer the Jade Dragons have to bring themselves back into this game. They're starting to catch up builds-wise, and of course there's no counting for potions that have been bought and the fully upgraded relics that we're seeing now from everyone but Variety, not really needing to... Well, I say that as he finishes up those upgraded relics, so ignore me, but this is where it starts getting dangerous for the Kings, right? Because just as we've seen from them in a lot of these games, it only takes one fight to flip the momentum back.
And Polar Bear Mike's smart here, calling his team to follow him, looking for a pick in the enemy jungle. He's just a couple seconds late on that red buff. Big Man Tings was just there, and they would have been able to pick him, but instead, they're probably going to have to deal with this left side trebuchet that somebody set off. So now that creates space around the Fire Giant. We've seen a loop like this before. It was Season 5 Energy. They were able to make a big loop like this, but it's been done once. That's why it's warded this time.
Yeah, they don't know that the Jade Dragons... Sorry, the Camelot Kings know that they're there, but the Jade Dragons don't. Polar Bear Mike gets caught out. There's the ultimate through from Shibalanke, looking to make everyone blind on the enemy team. And PBM able to get the stinger up, but Genetics finds the first blood. And now Pagon stuck in this wall. He's got to pop out sometime, someplace, and he will surely fall down when he does, trying to just find an opening. Captain Twig and the rest of the team, he's just running out of health at this point. He's got to pop out. But surely he falls down. Nimble strike, incense off the mark. Pagon may be able to get out here. He's been able to avoid capture.
Pagon essentially invisible there because he takes the vision away from Captain Twig. Captain Twig throws out his AoE ability but doesn't catch Pagon in it. That's a big commitment from Polar Bear Mike and a big commitment from the rest of the Jade Dragons. Not a bad rotation behind a Fire Giant like that. It is a desperation play, an understandable one, but it's one we've seen before. Like we said, Season 5 Energy, we've seen that highlight plenty and plenty of times. They know, like these teams know to expect that at this point.
And now it's the enhanced Fire Gianted, belted Camelot Kings charging down this right lane. The Jade Dragons had a hard enough time holding on to their Titan when it was just regular Fire Giant. This time around, that objective just giving them so much extra attack, so much extra regeneration. This Camelot Kings team is going to be super unstoppable coming into this base.
As long as the Camelot Kings just play smart and patient, they're able to find these victories. But it's just up to the Jade Dragons to look for a mistake, find some damage in that armor, and capitalize on that. It's really difficult to find, though, when the whole team is just grouping together like this.
Pinoke's HP bar there, where he just had to dip back into the Phoenix. One hail of arrows from BM Tings
Yeah.
is what was able to cause that. Just truly an absurd amount of damage coming from this Ola.
So no waves for Kings.
29,000 damage
Still
for the
have
mid laner.
all of their relics. Jade Dragons missing a couple, but none too bad, apart from Pagon, I suppose, who managed to escape with his life earlier on. He won't be able to be too confident around this Uller. If he finds an axe, they're probably just one-shot him.
Genetics posturing up, looking for some damage, but it's going to be the Dragons who are able to output some of it onto Variety and himself. But here it is, Ro. This is the end push. Everyone's grouped up. Frenzy is popped. There's the Coerce and the Titan. It doesn't matter how many of the Jade Dragons are around it. It will fall down because worst case scenario, Captain Twig is invincible and the Kings charge down and win the game.
Great play from them this set to move on to the finals. They're up against the Titans now. We saw Genetics tweet last night. This semi-finals match just is one that is going to predict who's going to lose to the Titans. So maybe that confidence will be up there now. They've just been able to 2-0 the Jade Dragons in a very clean playstyle as well. Maybe that ending didn't look so clean from a top-down view, but really there's no chance for the Titan there when you pop the Coerce and the Fafnir damage, and they might take a couple spills on the way, but the Titan will fall before all 5 of them will fall. So
yeah,
great play by Kings there.
Absolutely. Just well, this is what we were saying earlier, right? They didn't have the Umoja this time, but the sheer amount of damage input is absurd. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to throw over to the desk because they're going to tell us what the Kings are calling.
Yeah, thank you so much, Blazy and Ro. I'll be honest there, Charlie. I thought maybe we were going to go for one more siege push, maybe try and get the Kings to try and bait one of the Dragons players out of that base and find that pick. But just the sheer raw damage output that the Kings were able to put out, thanks to the help of that Fafnir Coerce, thanks to the help of that Frenzy, gets them the win at the end of the day. The Kings 2-0 the Jade Dragons, and now they'll move on to face the Titans.
Yeah, they looked really solid in that later game portion. The Jade Dragons came out swinging once again, but they had that call lead, they had the auto attack damage, and do you see how much BMT was able to do just poking for like 700 with each hail of arrows? That's the strength of letting them get to that point of the game. The Camelot Kings were always confident and knew that they had that end game push, but played a little slow towards the end. Once those 3 Phoenixes were down, in my mind, they probably could have all ended any moment, but they were just a little bit scared, a little bit jumpy. With Destruction, I feel like just anyone tanking up for Titan, Captain Twig is essentially able to end there, but there was a lot of defense plays. As long as Fine-OK and Panda Cat were hitting some big crits, they didn't really want to commit to the end because there's a lot on the line right now. There's a lot of money on the line. Finals were also on the line, and they wanted to make sure that they were going to be in that number 2 spot, at least going up against these Tartarus Titans.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was a case of the previous seeds. They were able to get all 3 Phoenixes and then kind of petered off, tried to make an end. The Camelot Kings weren't able to find any holes in the composition at that time. Not quite enough damage online. Now playing it very slow, getting us to that 35+ minute mark when all of their carries are 6 slotted. They've got power potions, everything that they need to finally crack that base, finally find a way in towards the throne room and take game number 2. 7-3 from Captain Twig to round that one out. 1-2 from Variety, but a lot of defense and a lot of healing thrown out there. That way he can keep himself and his team alive. And still got to give a shout to Genetics. I mean, going back to what worked so well for him and what worked so well for the Kings, playing this facilitator style, this Fafnir allowing the rest of his team to make those big numbers.
Did BMT die at all this set? He had 0 deaths this time, and I'm pretty sure he had 0 deaths the first game. He was playing out of his mind. 32,000 damage, twice that of anything on his team, and the closest to him was Pagon there with 21,000. So just so much poke from this Uller, man. Once you get to that Heartseeker point of the game where you have your full build, just being able to do a ton from far away. But I think if you're a Jade Dragons fan, definitely a lot to be proud of here. They played the early game so well, but the Kings, they were just so confident in their late game team fight. They were able to say, maybe we'll go down a bit. Maybe we'll give a few, picks here and there, but they were always confident with what they had in the back. They had that late game call lead too.
Yeah, Jade Dragons are always a team that will keep you guessing on what's going to come. You never know what kind of meta style that the Jade Dragons are going to bring out during these kinds of tournaments, and really in any kind of format. Whether it be going into a tournament on the same patch that you just got done or into a new one, the Jade Dragons are an innovative team. Unfortunately for them, the Camelot Kings were able to find a way very quickly in their only matchup against them in order to try and adapt to that kind of play style. It's the Camelot Kings who are able to find a victory. That means that they'll be moving on to face against the Tartarus Titans. The Jade Dragons will be going home, and we'll do a farewell interview with one of the Jade Dragons, Fine OK, standing by for our post-game interview. Fine, unfortunate loss for you guys here up against the Camelot Kings. Kind of run me through some of the mental on that set. You're going against these guys. You have to make a tough defense. I mean, what are the comps like for the team?
We had pretty equal late game, I'd say, just especially that second game with just the double hunter and the crit and everything like that. So we kind of were confident if we could actually hit them in the Titan defense that we might be able to do something. They tried to do it a couple times and we were able to fend them off. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a good engage or anything like that. But props to Kings. They played it really clean, and despite the fact that we got some early game leads, we kind of we tossed them away a little bit with some picks here and there. I got picked a couple times in the set, first game and second. So definitely on me for that one. But yeah.
So you've had the chance to now face off against both the teams that are in the finals between the Titans and the Camelot Kings. I mean, how different is really the play style and kind of the theory crafting that comes from those two teams? Which would you say was kind of the harder team to face off against?
Well, I don't know. It's a little weird because we scrimmed the Titans a ton going into this tournament, so
right.
We kind of had a similar meta, and I think that's the correct meta. But I think both those teams are very clearly the top 2 teams at this tournament this weekend. I wouldn't say that one was really harder than the other. I think when we played the Titans, we literally played 2 comps that we literally never practiced in scrims for some reason, so we kind of trolled that a bit. But yeah, so I would say that maybe because I think the Titans actually have a better grasp of the meta, I think Titans, but I think they're both clearly the top 2 teams.
Well, before I let you go, Fine, do you have any prediction for that finals? Who you think's going to take it?
I'll say the Titans.
Titans from Fine OK. Well, sorry to see you go, Fine OK. You guys made a good run throughout your tournament. We'll see you for Phase 2. I'll let you get back with the team.
Thank you.
It's a little bit of a call out, at least maybe some favoritism for the Titans out of Fine OK. But, talking about that, he mentions that you come into these tournaments, sometimes you bring out everything that you've been playing in scrims, sometimes that you change those things up. It was something similar with the Valkyries, when Kiermi was going in to that final matchup that they had, bringing out this Vamana, something that they're not familiar with, something that they hadn't had a chance to play with, able to make some things work. But unfortunately for the Dragons, it will not. The Camelot Kings will move on to face off against the Tartarus Titans. We'll take a look at the bracket to see the path that has kind of happened throughout the entirety of these last 2 days of play and culminating up till now. The Camelot Kings with their win over the Bolts and then their win now over the Jade Dragons. That puts them square to the grand finals, a best-of-5 showdown between the last 2 teams in Smite Masters. It all started almost 2 weeks ago on Thursday when we had 16 teams enter the studio, and now only 2 remain for one final showdown.
It feels like years ago that this tournament started because it has just been so much nonstop action. But looking at the trip that the Titans took here, we already mentioned it, but they were able to 2-0 the Jade Dragons and 2-0 the Camelot Kings on their path here. In my mind, though, the Camelot Kings have stepped up a bit since then. Looking at how they're playing this meta now, Genetics seems to be very much on point now. I'm not going to say he wasn't before, but he definitely seems to be commanding this map for the squad. Captain Twig has been looking like he's been feeling a little bit more comfortable in these different style picks. Obviously, no stranger to the Kali, but he just looks more comfortable on it. And BMT, again, if he did die in that first game, it was not a lot. He was playing out of his mind for both these times. So I think the Camelot Kings have elevated their gameplay just since the last time they saw the Titans this week, and I think we'll be in for an interesting one.
And I got to contextualize exactly what we're looking at with these last two teams. The Camelot Kings were the 5th seed coming into this tournament. The Tartarus Titans were the 4th seed coming through here. So the Bolts, who were the number 1, or the number 2, the Dragons, who were number 1, the Warriors, number 3, all of those have already been eliminated. And it all comes down to this. Will it be the Camelot Kings? Will it be the Tartarus Titans? Stick around. We'll find out after this break.